Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning, this lovely morning, where I am joined by my good friends and co-hosts, Kamran Pasha.
Honor to be here as always, Andre.
And we are also joined by the lovely making her in-person appearance.
It's a pleasure to be here with you
This
too.
is a fulfillment of a long-time demand that I've had for Andre to bring generally lovely women onto this, Friday cast, and then a very specific lovely woman. So I'm very happy to have you.
Oh, thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, it's awesome to have everyone here, and we'll also have Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, joining us soon. Tom is otherwise occupied today, which sometimes happens, but we still have a great show for you because today marks the opening of the Eternals. Of course, some people have seen it already, and I wonder if Mike has seen it yet. How are you, my friend?
Very well, sir. It's funny that you asked me if I've seen it or not, because I actually plan on doing a research project, which I was going to bring back to the table for Midnight's Edge or Midnight's Edge After Dark, which is that I'm not sure, either tomorrow or Sunday, I'm going to just hang out at my movie theater all afternoon and into the evening. And the screenshots that I've taken of supposedly this movie is like half sold out to mostly sold out in my local theater.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this, and I've been kind of wanting to encourage a research project.
So I'm going to do a research project. I don't know if I'm going to do it Saturday or tomorrow or Sunday. After the show today, I'm going to work really hard to get my work done so I don't have to work tomorrow. And I'm just going to hang out at the theater either all Saturday or Sunday. Just hang out 4 to 7 hours while all the shows are flipping over. I'm going to take my screenshots. I'm going to have my Fandango on my phone looking at it, because the last time this happened was our favorite rabbit chicken movie, Shang-Chi, where I was like, wait a minute, because there were only 10 tickets left for that show, and I walked in and there were only like 20 of us there. So in a 150-person theater. So I'm seeing the same pattern now. And I will get into it now. But hi, everybody. And I'll tell you a little bit more what my action plan is as we go further along the show. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, I do suspect that The Eternals is a movie where the box office just might be, fortified. But we'll get into that before long. We have lovely people joining us, as always, which is a pleasure. We have Deleted Scenes is here. Matthew W. is here saying that Valiant Renegade, he has some weird videos everyone needs to go and check out. We have Natasha here, the ever-loyal wrench and head wrench, among many, many other awesome wrenches. We have Sontar, who sent us $2 Canadian saying, God favors the faithful, the bold, and the braves. And I do believe that there are quite a few people who will be in agreement with that. We have Dyrus joining us. We have Grand Wazoo 42 joining us. We have Lindsay, the cynical geek, is here. Sander Hammerslag says, Hola, Mike, which is a message we can all get behind. And Will Bloom says that, Kamran, you have really piqued his interest in Hollywood debauchery.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, well, go check out Kamran's Patreon, which is linked to in the description for even more of that. Like, if you like his appearances here, you absolutely have to check out.
I can talk a little bit more about debauchery under a private, locked off.
Yeah, exactly. So there's more stories where those came from. Mr. Tickletrunk is here. Hurin the Steadfast is here. Dragon Master 360 is here, and Olaf van Hess is here, along with many, many others, and of course, friend of the channel and of so many on the panel, Stephanie Janishek of the Smuggler's Cantina is here. So yeah, that is brilliant. And we did have a couple of other super chats. I'm just going to run through a couple of those before we start getting into the topic at hand. And today, of course, is going to be very Marvel and Eternals themed, given that today is the opening day of the Eternals. Now, I have already seen it. I put out my review like 2 days ago, but my opinions on the movie have matured somewhat, and we'll get into that. I know that RrrrMmmmm has also seen it, so I look forward to hearing your take on it. And then we have some who won't see it no matter what, which is a position I do respect.
Yeah, that's my position.
And speaking of position and prediction, John Apocalypse says for £1.79, Kamran's Indy 5 prediction close to becoming reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's a prediction I made on Midnight's Edge weeks ago, which seemed ridiculous at the time, that I don't think Indy 5 will ever see the light of day. And, you know, within 10 days of saying that, we suddenly had the news that Indy had been delayed a full year, which suggests very strong efforts to rework everything all the way perhaps back down to the script. You know, and then we had some tragic news yesterday that there apparently a crew member passed away, apparently from natural causes. There's a lot of natural causes going around nowadays, but apparently natural causes on, you know, yesterday on Indy 5. So, you know, there's and even I think the newspapers in Britain were talking about it and calling it a cursed production. So there's just a lot of energy around it that suggests even with this 1 year delay may end up becoming a permanent delay.
I have to say, I always find like the term that the movie is cursed when someone in Hollywood uses that term. I always find it so amusing, because to me that's just an excuse. That's code for we can't crack this. But our ego is too fragile to admit that we messed up. So it can't have been us. So it must be cursed.
Well, and it is actually code, and in the environment that we're currently in, which we're going to talk about today, the codes are being used on purpose, especially in the media with a certain person in charge of Disney, and there are ideas that are being seeded. So I would not be surprised if the idea that the production is cursed is being fed by someone who wants to make sure that movie never gets released, someone very powerful.
Yeah, that would not surprise me overtly much. But we shall see what happens with that. As I said, we are about to start getting into the topics at hand. But first, I want to run through a couple of these super chats, as one does, while we still have a chance to get reasonably caught up, because that chance is going to be gone pretty soon. Brad Lambert, he says, long-time viewer, asked Kamran on Patreon, but wanted to know your thoughts on the Virginia elections and the impact of it on pop culture. Oh, wow. Yeah, so we're trying.
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was going to say the super chats come out swinging this morning on a Friday.
Yeah.
Well, I answered briefly on Patreon, but I'll answer here for the general public very briefly, because I know we have a lot of stuff to go through today, which is that I do think that it was a bit of a shockwave for people in Hollywood who are very, let's just say, smug about where they think the country is going and how they think they're in charge of that ship. And I think the smugness is beginning to break. And so I think that the wokesters, and I would include someone like a Mr. Kevin Feige, are quite startled and upset and likely thinking, how can we change the narrative and save America? Sort of a mini version of what they felt in 2016, right? And they will want to double, triple down on this nonsense. However, I think we're in an environment very different from 2016 where we've seen it play out. And I think people like Bob Chapek and other money guys, people that Mike works with a lot, the rich guys, are kind of done with the communist guys messing up their game, right? You know, and messing up the money going to their pocket. So I don't think we're going to head down to further woke Hollywood. I think they will take the election as an indication that the audience is kind of done. And the reason I know that, and I'm going to stop talking about it at that point, is that CNN, our friends at CNN, immediately after the election said, well, maybe America is tired of woke preaching. So that's being told by their producers for them to say that, which means someone is telling them to say that. So that's a new message being seeded out that maybe we need to get off this kind of political, fanatical, ideological talk. And that's coming out of CNN. So that's a script coming out of them, which means that the system is now against it. It's not
this does not bode well for the Eternals and movies like it, but we'll get back into that. Valiant Renegade, our good friend, says, for $10. Great looking panel today. Hail, Andre, Mike, and of course, Kamran. Good morning, Wrenches and chat. Looking forward to the show. Yes, indeed. And Valiant, if you have the opportunity to join, I sent you the link, and if you're busy, then that's how it is. Then
I used a brand new Sharpie for my mustache this morning because I'm with Andre and Cameron and Rim. So
nice. And deleted scene says, "Hail, Andre, Mike, Kamran, mods, and chat." It's funny. I'm going to say that more often now that you're on.
Yes.
And then we have Roman Lakovets, who says, for 50 Swedish krona, the early numbers for the Eternals seem to be decent. Lower than the average MCU movie, sure, but ultimately decent in the grand scheme. And yeah, I agree, it does look that way, but we shall get back to it. The weekend is still young.
The weekend is young, and Shang-Chi was decent too, but it didn't play out very decently. So, ultimately, movies like this are going to be affected by word of mouth, and we're going to talk about that. So,
yeah. And Corvus6 says, I call BS on the audience score / reviews. You give it a high score, but your written comment says otherwise. Are you referring to maybe to the critic scores now? Because that's where I've seen that critics absolutely lambast it in their written review, and somehow it still comes out as a positive review.
Yeah, we're at that stage of propaganda now where where before the critics would just lie and we all knew they were lying and they knew we knew they were lying and they would put out the score. Now the critics are saying the truth, and then so the system is lying about what they're saying. So that's the next stage of the propaganda.
Yeah. And then we have Zondar, who says for $5 Canadian in 2018, Endgame was leaked on 4chan. Act 1 and 2 were what we got, but Act 3 was dramatically different and all the Avengers died. Seems it was real.
Yeah.
And something else real is that we are joined by Valiant Renegade. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm actually kind of working out of the house today. I'm getting over some crud, not the crud, but some crud. And Renegade Jr. and I stuck at home, antibiotics kind of making us feel groggy. So I'm going to try to slog through this as much as some people slog through the Eternals. So kidding. So no, good to see everybody this morning.
Yeah. And I'm going to go through all of the classic super chats that have been sent already, and then we are going to get into the show at hand. Then let's see what more we had here. Bashi Washi says, "Hail SAR." That was from somewhere in the Emirates, I believe. And he says, "Hail panel, salam brother Kamran, Andre. After that stream, they banned the movie in Saudi. I used the money to rewatch Dune on ice. Money well spent." Yeah, actually, because on the last stream, then I said that I'd heard that Eternals was about to be banned in a number of Muslim countries for the diversity and inclusion, to which Bashi Washi said that
it might have been
it's still on in Saudi Arabia, but then the countermeasure came afterwards. That's when it got pulled. So now it's definitely pulled in a number of Muslim countries.
Which is also infuriating. That's become the biggest news on the trades in Hollywood. Deadline, whatever it's people are in the industry are outraged that Muslim countries are banning it because I haven't seen the film, but apparently there is a same-sex kiss. There's that kind of thing. And so
actually, Kamran, if I may, and also I will tell you exactly why. Because one of the one black Eternal, he is the gay one. He is living married with another man, and his husband is a Muslim Arab.
Oh
yeah. Well, that's certainly a choice. That's an intentional choice by Kevin Feige and his people, which is leftover woke. We will help evolve the primitive Muslim people on their primitive attitudes towards sexual orientation, and they got the exact reaction that they were going to get. So,
Yeah, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that story. I'm just going to get into the first super chat of
So I didn't
today.
understand why it was banned. I mean, if it was just like a little moment of kid, they could cut that like they did in Jungle Cruise.
The actually, what I
Okay.
read was that several Muslim majority countries asked that the movie be trimmed for them. Marvel said that no, we're not trimming this segment; it's too important, and that's when they pulled the movie.
And you know, all I can say is Chapek can say, yeah, you could go ahead, good, try this.
Oh my!
Just see what happens now.
Yeah. And then the first super chat of the day, Taker 610 said for $5. I know the movie was dull, slow, boring, and every other synonym you can think of. But did you know it was diverse? Did you? And with that, we are not caught up on super chats, but we are caught up with everyone up to a certain point. So for everyone that has super chats sent after that, they have not been forgotten. They will be taken. But we have to get into the show proper here.
Andrew, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you get the carries upgraded to a Viking? Did you catch that earlier?
I did not catch that, but thank you, Carries, and welcome to Viking level. We're gonna have some more behind the scenes.
Can we just read John Wayne's? Can we just read John Wayne's, because I do want to just quickly address that, and then we'll.
Okay, let's see what this is. John Wayne. He says for $4.99. My apology to Kamran for my rude super chat from last Friday. Sufficiently chastened, I shall be more respectful in the future.
Well, I believe, forgive me, I don't remember who said it, but this may have been in reference to the one we did last week, where someone had sent that, that they really very positive, they really like me, this is
the one. That's him.
Yeah, and then the gentleman, I believe the gentleman also added, I wish you would convert to my religion, and we had a discussion, and I actually want to apologize to you, and I got a little riled up about that, because your intention was sincerely very positive. You were giving me praise, and I wanted take that. I do ask that all of us, and I know I'm one of the few people that comes up in that sense that's very open about his religious beliefs, and I understand that can be triggering for people, and I will try to be more respectful of those who don't share those beliefs. I just ask that we all get along. Let's all get along here. And I thank you for saying that, John Wayne. I appreciate the kindness in your heart. Let's all just try to live and let live on this channel.
Exactly, and that's what I appreciate here as well. Here we come from literally all over the world. I mean, I'm not faking this accent, and we come together joined by what we love, which is movies, entertainment, and culture. And we all have different political views, different political beliefs, but this is a place of true, genuine diversity in ideas, which means one can disagree. One can choose to, we disagree on this, but we agree on this other thing. So let's focus on what we agree on and have a conversation about everything else.
We have a common adversary, which is trying to ruin our entertainment. Let's all focus on that.
Exactly.
I just want to state for the record that if that's not a fake accent, then I'm sorry. I lost the office, poor guys. I'm out.
Yes. But with that, let us get into the first, actually, well, I'm not going to say the first main topic because it's all related. So the first subtopic of today, which is all about the Eternals. Now, I will say that I have already seen the Eternals. I already put my review up, but my opinions have matured a little bit on it. I now dislike the movie even more than I did, because there are things that after I've digested a little bit more, I see things now in the subtext and everything that I didn't see upon first watching it. But we'll get into that. But first, I know that you have seen it. Valiant, you haven't seen it yet.
I have not, and I actually, just for point of discussion later on, sent you an interesting little tidbit of information somebody left me in a comment about this that relates to it. Thought it might be fun to use. You can take a look and we'll talk later. But no, I haven't I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if I will. I told
No,
Cameron.
you don't have to. You don't have to.
I told Cameron the other day that with all the marketing behind this and how everything was centered around things, instead of, hey, this is a great movie, you need to go see it. Here's all the Marvel action. Here's how it ties into the story. Everything for months has been, we've got this kind of person. We've got that kind of person. We've got this kind of person. And I don't, that turns me off. It's like insulting to me. I don't want to be lectured and have a finger wagged in my face to go see a movie.
Hey, Valiant, bring all your kids. I got plenty of tickets for this weekend. I'm going to hang out at the theater and watch Eternals audience versus on-screen ticket buying. Come hang out.
Hashtag gold open for Mexican Iron Man. There we go.
And Mike, I guess that you haven't seen it either?
Nope.
And Kamran, I know that you don't even want to see it, which I
don't even want to see it. I'm not boycotting it because my fellow Muslims are boycotting it. I just like, you know what? Why would I give my money to this? Especially since I've been so talking about how this is quite possibly the last nail in Mr. Feige's self-created coffin. So I don't know. Why would I give?
But yeah, my opinions are known, and they are actually worse now, and I will get into why they're worse now. But first, what were your expectations going into the Eternals, and what did you like and what did you not like about the movie? And I will also say, spoil away. I don't care, and I don't think anyone else does. Spoil away. Seriously, if you don't want spoilers, you shouldn't be on this panel. So we will spoil the Eternals here. So you have been warned. Usually we will be very, very respectful to those that haven't seen it and stuff like that. That kind of ended when I reviewed it with Robert Meyer Burnett on Wednesday. We started out not spoiling anything, but that quickly escalated. So yeah, your thoughts. Don't worry about spoilers.
Well, gentlemen, I have to say, when I first found out that Chloe Zhao was going to be directing this film, I was concerned only because I had seen her film Nomadland, and I felt, and I kind of sent in a super chat about this, I felt that film was more like a documentary style, but it was a bit dour. And, you know, while it's true that the film demonstrated a lifestyle that many Americans and perhaps many people around the world participate in, I didn't feel that it was celebratory in any way. And so, you know, I felt that, you know, this is just in my personal opinion, that it wasn't doing the lifestyle any justice. And some people have actually criticized the interpretation or that film for that reason, that, you know, for some people that lifestyle is something, it wasn't something that they even chose even. It was a lifestyle that they might have had to just kind of do because this is just the best way they can survive. So I kind of felt, you know, I was very questioned about that. And I said, I sure hope that, you know, this movie that's upcoming, The Eternals, would not have that same sort of tone. And so when I first saw the very first teaser trailer, I wasn't enthralled with it because they didn't quite show you anything about what the film was about. Now, for those of us who know a bit about the lore, about the Eternals, that's fine. But for the majority of Americans who are going to be seeing this film and people around the world who don't know who the Eternals are, you were kind of left scratching your head wondering, you know, what on earth is going on in this particular trailer and what are they doing? Who are these people? And so they tried to kind of intimate the idea that the Eternals cared about something. There was something that they cared about, but you couldn't tell by that trailer. And so they introduced a second trailer and it had a little bit more information. I said, oh yes, okay, this makes more sense. And even as somebody who knows what the movie's about, I need to see a trailer that makes sense to me. It can't be a trailer that comes off and, you know, that just is not cohesive enough. So I could say, well, have you seen the trailer? So you know what it's about, you know, some sort of hint of what's going to happen in this story. So I went in with very low expectations because, you know, just looking at it from that point of view. Now, I did see the movie last night and I took my mother with me. She's 84. And, you know, I have to say that I liked the film. And so, you know, I just was not expecting to like it. And the other interesting part about it was about my only criticism of the film is really that I didn't feel that the deviants were interesting enough. And it doesn't mean that the people who worked on the film didn't do a great job in making these creatures look amazing or kind of, you know, like Venom-like style creatures with tentacles that were flying around. they just didn't feel like something that was specially created in order to do the purpose in this particular film. But, looking at it from the very beginning, the film starts off with a really nice scene. And they explain in detail what they're doing there. And if you have no background of the Eternals, you can follow this film very well. The stars looked very good. The costumes look better in the film than it did in the promo photos. I was very disappointed in the promo photos when that whole campaign came out. And I felt like the campaign completely fell short of this film in the promotion, in the way that the Eternals were coming across, what their mission is, and the fact that they are actually, superheroes, so to speak, or aliens, or whatever you would like to call them. They weren't promoted that way. They were promoted as if they were ordinary people on Earth, and they, got costumes that they got sort of thrown on their back. And so I think that a promotion for a film like this can do wonders in sparring interest, inspiring people wanting to go see a film like this. Even now, if I were to show that trailer to a lot of friends of mine, they wouldn't want to see that film. So I think that the promotional wise, and this is not a dig at the people who work in that area of this film, but it could have been done a little better to kind of just show a little bit more excitement and a little bit more interest in it. Now, in regards to the storyline, I have to say that I wasn't that fond of the fact that Cersei's, main love interest is the person who kind of betrays her. And I felt like that was kind of almost like you were telling people, don't get involved in a relationship, because boy, I wouldn't want to be the person who gets betrayed by somebody who they've been with for so many thousands of years. And also the fact that he felt he couldn't confide in her, and yet she was the person who ended up sort of becoming the leader of the group. So it was very strange in that regard. It was a plot line that's okay, but I didn't leave a good feeling inside of me. I felt very sad about what had happened, and I felt they could have done the same thing, just not maybe make it be her boyfriend who betrays her. Like, who wants to have their significant other double cross them, so to speak, and then fight you? Actually fight you. This is like so against every relationship I think known to man. It's just so unnatural that a person who cares about you and loves you would do something like that. But that's what happened, right? If we're looking at it from that point of view, someone who let's be honest about it. I don't believe in relationships, things like this happen. And if it is, it's an abusive relationship. This was a little much for me. And I was like, my mother was like, that's kind of sad. And I'm like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Why would he do that to her? So that's how my point of view coming from it in regards to that. And as I said before, I didn't think that the deviants were good enough to sort of be combated against these Eternals who on appearance in the film were generally portrayed very well. It came across very well. But if you were looking for a very strong deviant character, and at some point the deviant becomes more sentient, if you will, I thought it was great, but they didn't build up on that, and they needed to, because that was part of the plot line, and there had to be some reason why inherently you had to really just dislike these deviants. It's true that they were created in order to knock out, the major amount of apex predators, but it's like, could you hate them for this? No, there was no reason to kind of hate them for this. They're an experiment that's gone out of control, so to speak. I kind of wasn't too convinced that, they're just kind of killing them off one by one until they can kill them all off. But also, I thought, for me, the actors were great in it, and I had recognized the husband in the story from another film, but I can't remember where I saw him, because he's a famous actor, the gentleman who plays the husband of one of the Eternals.
Yeah, the Arab Muslim. The actor is from the United Arab Emirates.
He's a famous actor. He's been in a lot of films. Maybe one of you guys know, but he's well known in the acting field. I've seen him in a lot of films. If you guys are into independent films and things, he's well-known actor. So they picked a very well-known actor for that part, although maybe in some areas of the world he may not be as well known. But yeah, they probably were making a statement for this one 100%, because it didn't make any sense in the story. He kind of like took a forefront part where, you know, the Eternal has now been called to action, and, you know, he's kind of looking at him, and then I'm like, what? Why such an intense look? And I'm like, they wanted you to see this man and recognize him and be aware that he was in this relationship. But it was so unnecessary to kind of do that. It could have just been like, well, I have to leave now, and I love you guys, and, you know, take care. But there was like this odd intensity in him that I was like, what's the problem? Like, why is he so intense about this? You know, it's like, you knew you married an Eternal, you know, you knew your life wasn't going to be the same. So that there was that. And then I kind of wanted the emergence to happen. I didn't want this thing to stop. Now that does say something. That tells me that I wasn't overly convinced by the story that my own planet needed to be saved. And I have to wonder to myself, why did I want to see the emergence? Because it was the most interesting part of the story. Maybe it was the part that, you know, he was so enormous and he would completely destroy the planet that I was willing to see that in this film, because the rest of it perhaps didn't live up to my expectations. But it was entertaining. It was an entertaining film, and I would take people to see this. They would love it. Selma and Angelina looked lovely in the film. You know, overall, it looked perfect. But I don't want to be double crossed by somebody I care about like that. I don't think Icarus would have done that to Cersei. And, you know, I still want to see that emergence happen. I hope they can revive that creature and just explode it, because that would be more interesting than the other things that happened in the film. So I liked the film. I found it entertaining, but some things could have been shifted around so that, you know, it could make sense. Because I just don't believe any man would do that to a woman that he cares about, that he would hide from because he had to keep a secret. You're not going to try and beat up your girlfriend, are you? I mean, is that what they're saying in this story? It felt weird. So
I'm actually really happy that you mentioned. Carry on, Mike, because
it is absolutely. It's a. I mean, I'm both heartwarmingly. I feel warmth in my heart that you feel that way. I'm also a bit shocked too, because look, the trashing of men in Hollywood and in society and in culture in general is just rampant. It is out of control, much more so than the what that we can't talk about on the what YouTube.
Yeah. But I like men. See, I like men.
Of course,
so I don't like to see them like that.
And that makes me very happy to hear.
And that's what I'm saying to you, is that it makes me happy. I have warmth in my heart this morning at midnight to hear a woman with your intelligence who looks cute and pretty, and I told you that a million times, and you're a great you're a fan of pop culture like we are, and it's awesome to hear that, and we as men need to hear that more often. But there are many things happening in that movie, and while people are just focusing on the woke aspect, well, you know what you just talked about, which I haven't seen the movie, but I exhaustively know the exact plot line because I read it on Reddit, and so that is something too that also needs to die and go away, because in the same way that you're having the reaction that it doesn't make sense, well, that same thing doesn't make sense in society, it doesn't make sense in pop culture, and it sure as hell does not make sense in our civilization. And this civilization will fall except and unless we restrain ourselves and come back to what's normal. And normal is not man bad, man always bad, wah wah wah, because it's not true.
And actually, that's one thing that I wanted to touch upon, which is one of the reasons why I now like the movie even less than I did upon first watching it.
Oh, so you've thought about it and liked it. I thought when you said you
when your opinion had matured, yeah.
Yeah, my opinion has matured, so now I really dislike it. If you like it, then I respect that, and I can see why, and it's perfectly okay if one likes this movie. But the character of Icarus, because for those that haven't seen it, I'm sure that's most, and feel free to keep it that way. But the character of Icarus, he is basically the Superman of the story. He is the boyfriend that you're referring to, who ended up double-crossing his girlfriend of 5,000 years and physically beating her and everything like that. In the comic, he's the hero. I haven't read the original Eternals comic, but basically Icarus is the point of view character and the one that we follow. He is most people don't know him, but basically he's the Luke Skywalker character. He's the hero that you want to be. And so he is the one that they creatively made the choice that they're going to pull a Last Jedi on by making him appear to be the hero in the beginning. And midway, we learn that the one white guy in the Eternals was secretly the villain all along, backstabbing absolutely everyone along the way, because he serves this evil ultimate purpose, and I have an issue with that too. But yeah, that's a major one. So they then took the hero and they made him evil. It's like very funny that they chose one white guy that still remained of the team, and he's the one they made a villain.
And Andre, they, you know, if they wanted to go down this route, they definitely should never have had him beating up his girlfriend, this is how I see it, in this abusive relationship. But
Not only that,
like,
he killed his female boss before that. He killed.
Yes.
He's the one.
I didn't say. I didn't.
Okay. Here's like the thing: those that think that Salma Hayek has like a huge role, well, be disappointed, because she dies 10 minutes into the movie. Yeah. We think that she has been like killed by a deviant, because that's kind of like what sparks the whole movie into action. But nope, it was evil white man the whole time.
The Latina woman has to be killed.
If they were going to, go down this this story arc, make him get possessed by something. You know, he's been seeded by some evil something, or some kind of parasite or something. Because that behavior, it's a turn off. He's hot. He's a hot actor. He was beautiful to watch on screen. But I'm like, I didn't like that, and I thought that it was wrong to do it, and just not. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's like one thing, and
so
another thing,
like a leftover from the Last Jedi days, from what you're describing, and I totally understand that some of it can work, as RM certainly enjoyed much of this movie, but that element is definitely a leftover from we've got to go after the evil white man. It just feels like an outdated, dumb trope to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the other reason why, why I have like more issues with the movie now upon reflecting it is that I saw a thing in the subtext that I didn't see right away. Because again, brace yourself for spoilers. This is what the Eternals are all for. They're all basically robots. They're androids that have been programmed by the Celestials. And the Celestials are these giant space creatures, and they are absolutely vital for life in the universe. The Celestials are the one that basically kickstart star evolution, and therefore they are the ones responsible for planets getting life and everything like that in the first place. So every single Celestial, over the course of their lifespan, they're going to make many new stars, they're going to create many new worlds, and they're going to create billions and billions upon new life forms across the universe. That's what they do. That's their purpose.
Yes.
But how are they themselves born? Well, they are basically bred inside planets. So they gestate in the interior of a planet, and then when they come to life, that is when the planet has reached a certain threshold of living creatures on it, so that then they burst out of the planet, and then they consume the living beings, and then they come out as as Celestials. And yeah, they had to then kill all the living life on that planet. But because of that, they can then go and create billions of new planets with new life forms and everything like that. So
and if this cycle is disrupted, then it disrupts the cycle of creation.
Yes, exactly. So without the Celestials, there will eventually be no more life in the universe. And in order for them to create more life and the cycle of life, something has to be destroyed, namely the planet in which they gestate. And here's the true purpose of the Eternals. Earth is a planet in which Celestial gestates. So their job is to prevent the deviants from killing off so many life forms, or so much life on the planet, that the Celestial can't mature. That he'll just stay there in egg form. So this is where I suddenly got the subtext.
It's a matrix. It's a matrix thing where he's taking the energy from the beings on the planet to develop.
Okay.
Right,
exactly.
Andre?
Kind of. Yeah, pretty much. But here's the thing, though, because then the mission of the Eternals is to keep the deviants in check, so that they don't kill too many people, so that the Earth can prosper and have people on and everything. And when there's enough, then their job is to assist the Celestial to basically kill the entire planet and go and see the universe. The Celestials don't know this. The only one who knows was Salma Hayek and Icarus. Those two know, and they kept it from everyone else. And Icarus, he's the villain, because he's still a true believer in this mission. This is what they were created for. It's a universal good that this life be born, and so Earth has to go. Because that's
so what this is. This is a commentary on colonialism. This is a commentary on manifest destiny. I mean, if someone gave me, the script, I would be like, I know what you're trying to say here, right? If they asked me to,
they're saying one other thing as well that I got from it. So, but the other Eternals, they don't agree. They decide, hey, we like it here on Earth, so we have to stop this from happening. We have to go against our creator. We have to start our own way here. So basically, they go against their creator, the Celestials, and what they want to do. They don't put this in words, but what they want to do is abort the Celestial before it's born.
No.
Okay. So yeah, and some people in the chat were saying that
if you think about it, that's what they're doing. They're trying to abort the Celestial before it's born.
So my concern about how the Celestial does not actually get born, and while it is true what you are saying, Andre, I'm not contradicting anything, and what you're saying makes sense, was not from the point of view of the sense of abortion, but more that the Celestial became the most interesting thing in the story. And I was so disgusted by that betrayal in the relationship that I wanted that Celestial to explode the Earth. I just wanted that thing to just explode so much that it destroyed the Eternals, and he was just born, and it was like, okay, let's just get some new Eternals in here.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are like the two reasons why I dislike the movie more now, that I picked up more things in the subtext. One is the last Jediing of the hero of the comics, and the not so subtle abortion storyline, which of course is like a private choice, but again, I don't think that was like right for a movie.
Yeah, well, it's messaging, and this is still supposed to be a family movie, right? And so it's still
messaging.
And I'd seen in the chat people saying that there was a anti-religious message. I didn't know what that was. I'm thinking maybe that references, people who essentially following an ideology that, like.
I think that the only
I
didn't get too much of that. I think that's mostly because they were like, these are the servants of a god. Basically, if you want to go into the Abrahamic religions, the Eternals are the angels. They don't have their own free will. They are the servants of their god. Yeah. And these then, the Eternals that we follow, the heroes of the story, would then in this parallel be fallen angels, because they go against their creator.
Okay, so that's the analogy. I think that is definitely the analogy.
Whereas the one that really wants to stick by the mission and continue to be loyal to his creator, to gods per se, he's the villain of the story.
Sure. And he's the white male too. So
too.
So this is not very sophisticated writing. I'm going to see who wrote this thing. I mean, this is clearly, here's a bunch of.
I can tell you, Chloe Zhao.
Oh, she
what?
What? She did the screenplay, you mean?
I'm gonna look that up.
She didn't like write the whole thing herself, but she had a big hand in developing the story.
Oh,
so now,
for
of
God's
course,
sake.
there's a different credited writer, but
Oh,
there are
okay.
articles which describe how much she personally influenced the movie and the story. Now, it could be that that's something that they put out there as a spin. It could be that Kevin Feige is behind the whole thing. It could be that the writer is behind the whole thing. We don't know. But the narrative that they put out there is that Chloe Zhao has been really deeply involved in this story, in getting it out there and shaping it exactly the way that it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that every single decision is hers, but I do stand by what I said in my review.
Mm-hmm.
She was the wrong person for this. She should never have been hired.
There are
Her
three
she's a good filmmaker, but her sensibilities are all wrong for a movie like this.
Well, there are 3 credited screenwriters on this. I don't know any of these gentlemen. I'm looking at their credits, and let's just say it's a little surprising that they got a movie of this scale based on their previous credits. All 3 of them. It's really a little, I was like, that's a bit of a jump for every single one of those writers from what they had done previously, to get this kind of project. So it feels like writers were chosen because they were willing to play along with.
Oh my
this
God,
story.
I'm on my IMDb Pro. You're right, bro.
I mean, I've never heard of any of these people. God bless their colleagues. I mean, I wish them well, but I don't know who they are. And this, the scale of the movies they did before this is like, you don't think they're going to do a huge Marvel, $100 million plus movie. It just doesn't. And it feels like they were like, okay, they're going to go along with this. So, okay.
Yeah, and as Augusto Lozano points out, that this is also similar to Transformers: The Last Night, and that's also like one of my issues here. Like, it's like a Transformers movie in that everything comes back to Earth. Earth is so cosmically significant at absolutely freaking everything. There's like nothing happens in the universe that doesn't involve the Earth one way or the other, and typically something in the Earth's past, which again is I think is. Personally, I think it's really lame. I respect everyone who liked it, such as RrrrMmmmm, but I do think that as you reflect on this movie more, your enjoyment of it in retrospect will go down, not up.
Well, something.
That's mansplaining. You're telling everyone that's mansplaining there.
But of course, if
something.
I'm wrong, then that's cool too, and do stick by your convictions. But but I hear already what you say about Icarus. That's like a big sticking point. That's like one of my experience. That's not gonna. It's not gonna be any smaller the more you think about it.
Yes, and another thing that was interesting was that the Sprite character, who's I guess a young girl or whatever.
Ginger Pinocchio. Yeah. The actress is really is a young girl. She's a genuine biological she/her.
Yeah, the part where she's kind of like, it was incredibly obvious where she's like, well, I'm unhappy. And I'm like, well, what are you unhappy about? You're an Eternal. What's the problem? You know what I mean? Just between you and I, it's like they can do so many things. She's lived thousands of years. What exactly is making her unhappy? And I guess she had said that she saw the humans and their lives and saw what their lives were like, and it's made her unhappy. But it didn't feel like enough justification, let's say, for her. I mean, I would imagine the Eternals could just make her a grown-up person or whatever.
No, they can't, because that's like the thing. But I actually had no issue with that, because she is someone that was created in the body of a child, which means that all the other things that the Eternals can do because they're adults is off limits for her. Like, think about where we first was introduced to her. She's trying to go on a date. She's out on town and she's trying to pick up a guy that may be interested in her, and for that she has to like create this avatar around her of an adult woman. But when he touches her, he touches right through her. So he can only do that illusion. Doesn't change anything that she has like the body of a 12-year-old. And so she's gonna, she's been like on Earth for 7,000 years, but with those restrictions.
That's from what I didn't know.
And to me, that's the best part of the movie, was actually that Sprite character.
but that's also troubling, because there's this implied. Again, remember the people that are making this movie, right? There's also this implied P word there,
Yes, there is.
There is. And
yeah, because I was like thinking, I know loads of people in Hollywood that would definitely not be.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, because they're those people in this industry have the belief that, well, it's not a child; they're an adult at heart. So there's a little bit of seeding of a thing there. I mean, I remember when Interview with the Vampire, which also had that thing. It's in Anne Rice's original novel. You had a young girl, you had a child who would turn into a vampire, who then essentially develops a mind of an adult over hundreds of years. And it's a very disturbing part of the original book and in the movie, which is essentially this child is developing all these sexual feelings that come with being a vampire, but it's still a child for 200 years, right? And so that was disturbing in that, and that caused a lot of people trouble in that original story. And the fact that it just pops up in this way, even if it is an interesting character,
yes,
remember the people behind this have other agendas.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like my more current thoughts on the movie, and I like it even less and less, and I look forward to what the audience score is going to be come next week.
Might not move much.
Yeah, we shall see. All right,
there is an interesting disconnect on Rotten Tomatoes. There seems to be a high, at least as of now, viewer audience response, and the critics is very low. And so let's assume that those are both authentic numbers. We're gonna have that. Otherwise, we can't have if it's just fake, it's fake. Doesn't tell us anything. But let's assume those are authentic numbers. To me, what's interesting, and maybe this will help us evolve the conversation a little more to where things are going with Marvel and Disney in general, which is that you have, and I pointed this out earlier, the moment, I wrote a Patreon article about this, the moment earlier this weekend, we started getting these reviews, and we had major outlets that were leftist outlets, like the LA Times, right? Slate were panning in aggressive terms this from BBC, which is the woke of the woke, which gave us this new sort of fake Doctor Who, right? Is saying this is a terrible movie. And so I'm like, why would these people, if it is, and they're even saying, LA Times is saying, Justin Chang at the LA Times saying, representation isn't enough. And that's all this is, it's hollow representation. Coming from these people, this is stuff that we've been saying, right? We've been saying this stuff for several years, which is that empty representation is bad storytelling and disrespectful. And it's coming from these very leftist things. So I was like, this isn't, and it's all happening at once. So this suggests to me that this is a narrative being crafted. And I don't know that it was being crafted for political reasons, because this was before the election results, which shocked people, right? So I don't know that it was Hollywood was seeing, or the media was seeing that there was going to be an open shift in what people will tolerate. I think it was more like someone said, all right, this is going to be the message I want you guys to get out about this, right? Someone maybe in Bob Chapek's office, right? So it is interesting to me, but now they've trapped themselves in this new narrative. When Justin Chang on the LA Times is now saying, you can't just have empty representation. Well, he's stuck to that now. So it's harder in the future when they try to do empty representation movies for him to be able to say, it's great. We've got the gay character. We've got the Muslim character. We've got all that. I don't need to see anything else. He can't go back to that now. None of these guys can, because they've broken their own taboo.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And also, I'm curious about what the fallout is going to be behind the scenes at Disney and Marvel, and how both Chapek and Feige is going to be using this movie and its response, or lack thereof, in their little game of 4D chess over the future of both the MCU and Disney at large. So we'll be dealing with that momentarily here. But first, I want to address a couple of super chats. And while I do that, everyone listen to Mr. Tickle Truck and smash that like button. Get us to 1,000 likes here, and I'll do a couple of super chats, and we'll get into the
1,800 people. Come on, hit the like button. Yeah.
Yes, smash that like. Smash it for.
Don't do it for the dudes. Do it for the lovely baby. Chivalrous men. Come on.
Yeah. And Mr. Tickle Trunk also says that. Liked it. Whoa, such an echo chamber here. Exactly, and also one that I can bring up on screen right now is Chaos Sonic, who says it's more frustrating is that Thena and Crow in the comics are secret lovers, both love each other and willing to betray their own kind to save each other. Well, not in this movie, evidently. So, yeah. And then let's see what more I can bring up on screen before we get into the repository behind the scenes. No more I can bring up on screen. So then, repository behind the scenes, here we come. And yes, smash that like for give me 1 second here, and I am just going to refresh because the repository needs refreshing.
And one thing, while he's refreshing, I just want to tell everybody, I know we've had some problems with the member chats, especially in the morning because the shows are big, but this morning I'm on deck. So any of you guys that are members and you want to use your member chat, I am grabbing them. We will get to them just like we do all super chats. So I know we had some problems at Midnight's Edge After Dark, but we're on top of it. So if any of you who are members want to use your member chat, use them. We'll grab them when we can, but don't hesitate. And we're committed to making sure you guys as members are able to use them. Thanks.
Yeah, we do our best. We really try, but unfortunately, they don't show up in the behind the scenes, unbelievably. But yeah, that's how it is. And then Ryan Gingras says for $5, "Hail Mexican Iron Man! I'm bound for SC South Carolina in 3 weeks for vacation. Any recommendations for places I should visit?"
Yeah, Hilton Head Island, where I live, where if you show up, since you're loyal on Midnight's Edge and I've known you for months now, you should be in Hilton Head Island. Mexican Iron Man will take you out for like seafood and a brewski. Hilton Head Island. Find me on Twitter. I'm going to put my thing in the chat right now. Let's do this.
See, that's an offer one can't refuse. I mean, I would agree. I don't think there's anything better you can do in South Carolina than that, probably, than hanging with Mexican Iron Man.
Andre, they can a visit to the Rabbit Chicken Ranch in South Carolina, where the rabbit chickens roam free. Oh my God!
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to come to South Carolina myself. And then Michael D. Falls says for $5, "Just booked my tickets for Rocky IV, Rocky versus Drago Director's Cut. I would rather see 25-year-old movie than The Eternals. Dune, best movie of the year." Well, glad you feel that way. And Fredrik Haugen says for 100 Swedish krona, "Greetings and salutations to the Midnight's Edges live chat. Quick question. Are people getting saturated with superhero movies, and what would replace them as the next big franchise?" What do you think? Are people getting fed up with superhero movies, and what can replace them?
No, I think that they love superhero movies. And part of the reason why is because you have the most beautiful and interesting people playing these roles in superhero movies. So as long as they can sort of get these A-list actors playing these roles, people are going to be very interested in them and buy the films, even if it's bad, and buy merchandise, whether or not they like it or not. And it'll always have interest. And, I think, honestly, there could be a million Captain Americas. There's going to be someone who will find a Captain America that's right for them. So I think that they could just replace it with maybe other iterations of a character. And we're seeing them do that now. So, no, I don't think there's too many. And the comic books are a perfect demonstration as to why there aren't too many.
Kamran, how about you? Do you think that people are about to be fed up with superhero movies, and what could replace them?
Well, I agree with RrrMmmmm, and I think people in the chat are saying people are fed up with bad superhero movies, so I think that's true. I think there will always be a market for superheroes because superheroes taps into our archetypal need for a idealized version of ourselves. That's an anthropomorphized deity, right? That's why you have perfect example is Thor, right? Who's actually an anthropomorphized deity from the human, history, from your people, from the Norse, right? And that goes back. I mean, why is it that we create these gods in our own image, right? We need the sense of these idealized visions of more than us. The whole thing, Superman, you will believe a man can fly. It's not you an alien from another planet. You will believe a man, which is you can fly, right? That's what they represent. But I think I do think that the breakthrough of Dune will now suddenly bring good science fiction storytelling, which we have not seen in a while. I really believe that's going to, people have like, oh, maybe, we haven't seen good sci-fi in a while. And I think Dune is going to open that door for people.
Oh,
Very cool. Valiant, how about you?
No, I don't think they're dead. I think, like you said, the bad ones are dead. People are, they don't want to go see, and Eternals, I'm sorry, is a pretty good example based on what we're reading from so many of these critics. And I said this in the video I did this morning. The universal element with this that's so unique is that Marvel Studios has committed the cardinal sin of a superhero movie and made it boring. I mean, and that's been the consensus with all these critics. I mean, you throw out anything they didn't like. Oh, I didn't like this character. I didn't like this plot, or I didn't like this, or this was good. You know, the nuances and the nitpicky stuff. The overarching thing that they all said, even the ones that gave it fresh tomato ratings, they all commented, or most all of them commented, it was boring for them. So that's the kind of stuff that I think will kill your franchise or your system, or your entire network of franchise like you have with the Marvel system. Venom was popular. Venom was, it's a villain movie. And then you've got Spider-Man No Way Home coming out later this year, which people seem to be very anxiously anticipating. I mean, 350 million views of that trailer that dropped a month or two ago now. In the first 24 hours it was out worldwide. That was 75 million more views in the first 24 hours than frickin' Endgame. Now, that doesn't mean that, you're going to have a $3 billion box office with Spider-Man, but it does show that there is a high degree of interest when you provide people something they really, really want. And of course, again, when you respect the franchise, you respect the characters, the stories, the backstories that they come from. And I'm not talking about, kind of the shenanigans that Marvel has pulled in the last 10 years since Disney bought them out, where they go out and they produce all of these new versions of characters in the comic books. Like, they remake the characters in the comic books, and then a few years later start developing a movie from it and saying, oh, well, this happened in the comics. Yeah, like 2 years ago when you wrote it. I'm talking about the original character from a decade, 2 decades, 5 decades, 7 decades ago, whatever, the original character. No, you're screwing with that. You're using, your own comic book versions of these characters from last year to justify doing what you're doing now. And don't be surprised when people don't go see it. As far as the Eternals is concerned, like I said, I mean, look, this will bear out. We'll see what kind of box office it has, but I would just caution folks of looking at this movie, whether it be a success or a failure, which I tend to lean at this point, it's going to be, from a financial perspective, be a failure for Disney. Don't say that, you can't sit there and think, well, that's the end of it for superhero movies. Nah, because 1 month later, 6 weeks from now, whatever it's going to be, you got Spider-Man coming out, which that's a Sony Pictures release, which means no strings attached, theatrical only, traditional window, no 30-day, 45-day, goes on streaming 60 days after it comes out, garbage. None of this stuff Disney's doing. Traditional theatrical release at a good window during the Christmas break. When everybody's off school here, especially domestically, you've got that long 2-week break, and movies that come out, big movies that come out. Matrix is another one coming out at that point. But I think Spider-Man's going to kill it. And I think it's going to, it's like, look, there's your argument. Just give us good stuff and we go see it. We pay for it.
Mike, any thoughts?
I'm going to go with the comment. Gosh, where was it? I think it was by Chaos Sonic. There's no such thing as superhero fatigue. I'm sorry, I'm reading the super chat out of line, but I just thought it echoes my sentiments exactly. He talks about Hero Academia, which is a manga about superheroes. Mm-hmm. We're not tired of superhero movies. We're tired of superhero movies that might suck, and that don't make sense. And I think one of the great things about your review that you did a couple days ago with RrrMmmmm is that you broke down, I know that your opinion of the subject matter has matured, but you really broke down the story elements and how flawed was the execution of the story that was trying to be told. It's a whole other discussion which you're having now, Andre, about whether or not this is a story worth telling at all. But the we just don't. We've seen so many things. We know when we see great superhero movies. But here's the thing that Kamran is suggesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. When I started going back to the movies, I think the first or second movie I saw was The Last Purge, Polly recommendation from Latino Slant. And at the time, and on Midnight Stage After Dark, I've said the horror genre will lead the way. And I think that and I agree with what he's saying now about sci-fi. I think sci-fi now is going to be where we go there. And I think great movie making and storytelling might have a chance to exist again. but we've got to open up. We got to crack these genres. We got to crack the woke clutches that are gripping the throats of these genres we love and set them free so that great storytelling can come back again.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at the scores and the metrics that places like Rotten Tomatoes and Cinema Blend or Cinema Score or whatever they put out, and that's great. But I mean, most people have a sense, and like we talked about months ago when the trailers for this movie dropped and everybody looked at it, what was everybody's reaction? What?
Right.
Huh?
Right.
That looks boring. What the hell did I just watch? There was nothing. There was no hook. And sometimes in a first teaser, first trailer, I can forgive the lack of a solid hook, because it's just to try to get you curious, like, oh, this is coming out. But when that second one drops, that final trailer drops, usually just a few weeks before the movie does, you definitely want to have something in there that grabs you. I mean, that's what good marketing does. Now, if they didn't really have anything in there to grab you, well, that says even more. And that's why I say this was a mistake from top to bottom, I think, in execution, like you said, Andre, even from the marketing standpoint.
And Cameron, could you extrapolate on what you were talking about great sci-fi, and what's your reaction to what I said about genres in general?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
genres vis-a-vis woke Hollywood.
Well, look, the thing is this. Genre, particularly sci-fi, what it does is it allows us to comment on the human condition in a safe way, right? That's what sci-fi always allows us to do. That's why historically things like Star Trek could talk about race and all these issues. You know, the famous Star Trek episode where you had, you know, the two races, the two guys fighting each other. One had, you know, black on half his face and white on the other, and then the other one was flipped. And they had essentially their two people were fighting each other and destroyed their entire race, right? And so it was a chance to talk in the 60s about race in a way that was not threatening. And sci-fi has that ability to talk about that. Great sci-fi, you know, I'm of the view that Battlestar Galactica, the Ron Moore version, is great sci-fi because it's really not about people floating in space. It's about war. It's about colonialism. It's about religion primarily. It's actually very deeply about religion. And so it's a profound commentary on the human condition. Now, the reason we haven't seen good sci-fi is that, you know, the commentary has gotten to a dumb place. So like Hollywood's commentary is no longer exploring sincerely looking into the human condition. It is about trying to program the human condition. And so they've actually been using superhero movies and other genres to do that programming because they just, you know, sci-fi is more honest because it's supposed to be where the future is going, right? Where superhero, you can be fantastical. And so these Hollywood morons think that fantastical means you can be dishonest about humanity, right? And so now something like Dune is a very honest film, you know, in the sense that, you know, it's very faithful to the Frank Herbert book. It actually explains the book better than I think any version has in the past. But what always struck me about the Dune mythology with this movie follows is that it's an honest view of what 20,000 years from now will be like, which is that we will have this incredibly advanced technology, but human relations will not be any different. In fact, will it be going backwards to sort of medieval social relations with emperors and harems and concubines and all these, and women using soft power to actually have real power. You know, the sort of the idea of, you know, the superhero woman that was being presented, especially particularly in superhero movies recently, was that femininity itself was not a good thing, and that a woman's soft power, her ability to essentially control a man through words and through coquettishness and all this stuff is somehow degrading, and women should want male power, masculine power. And so I think most women actually enjoy being women and enjoy the femininity and enjoy the power that they have. As a Venezuelan woman once said to me, I don't understand American women. They want to be equal to men. I want to be treated better than men. And that's how I use my femininity to achieve that outcome, right? And so Dune goes back to that, and it's troubling for the Hollywood elites because, you know, in fact, even you have Rebecca Ferguson, who was incredible in that movie. I think it's award-winning performance as Jessica in Dune, personally. And but she had to come out because she's from your region, my friend. You know, Andre, she's from Sweden, right? She's from your general region.
And you know what any woman from her general region will say? They're all about equality as long as it benefits them.
Correct. That's kind of how it works. You know, we're all trying to advance ourselves. So, but she had to go out in interviews, say she was troubled by the very role she had to portray of essentially this woman who's a concubine who's using manipulation and lies and emotional and all this stuff to essentially become a queen, right? And the mother of a future galactic emperor. Mm-hmm. So she's troubled by her understanding of feminism, that's what the women in this movie are doing. But most women didn't seem troubled by that. They seem to get it. I mean, I was hearing that women really wanted the Jessica costumes for Halloween. And they're like, incredible. She's wearing beautiful veils and long dresses, right? They wanted that. And they didn't want the masculine woman that's sitting on top of the throne. There was more power, like when Jessica steps off the planet onto Dune, and she's wearing this incredibly feminine, sexy dress and has these ladies in waiting holding her train. I wasn't looking at anybody else on the screen. I wasn't looking at the dudes. My eyes were all on Rebecca Ferguson, right? That was her power. And so sci-fi, Dune has now allowed sci-fi to resurrect because we can, I think, start having honest storytelling about the human condition again.
Yeah, that's very interesting points. And it'll be interesting to see which movie is going to be more influential in the long run, Dune or the poor man's Dune, which is what I consider Eternals to be. But yeah, that's me. I think and I hope that Eternals is going to be the more well-regarded movie, whereas the biggest legacy of Eternals, I think and hope, is going to be its repercussions within Disney. And we'll get into that momentarily, but I want to get to call on a few other of these super chats here. These are classic super chats. I can't bring them up on screen, but we leave no super chat behind. So we're going to do classics right now. Grand Wasu 42 says for €5, and I think this is for you, Kamran. You have a great track record with your predictions. Nothing is ridiculous anymore in these. Keep it up.
Well, thank you very much, and I thank you, Andre, for letting me do most of the predictions on here. And they come from 20 years of having my butt kicked by this town, right? And seeing all the machinations and being, watching projects die because someone played this game and realizing that I'm a pawn in somebody's story. And I've witnessed all that. I've directly experienced it. That's why I'm like, well, this is how these people think, right? I've been the victim of it. So how is a chess game moving? And so that's been the fun part of it. And on my Patreon, I'm now going very deep into it. I just published an article midnight last night about why I think the rumor that we're hearing from our friend Doomcock that Scarlett Johansson was actually plotting with Bob Chapek the whole time. The lawsuit that she filed was Bob Chapek's idea to corner Kevin Feige into an impossible situation from which he cannot emerge. And it sounds so absolutely crazy. And I write this very detailed thing of why this is exactly true based on my experiences, right? And that's all my predictions come from, is that I've seen everything and it's all crazy. And somehow I've survived it.
Yeah, actually, that's a perfect segue. So let's continue that right now.
Yeah,
Kamran, because as you referenced, our good friend Doomcock, he dropped a video I think it was yesterday, in which he broke down some more details about Indiana Jones, what's happening behind the scenes of Disney and Marvel, but he also broke some details about what's going on between Iger and Chapek specifically, and their little game of 4D chess. I think
you meant Feige, not Iger, because I think that.
Sorry, I meant Feige. Yes, Feige. Because here's the thing. I think that Feige, he is still under the previous contract, so he's probably scheduled to be there for years yet. I would imagine. I do not know exactly.
Unless he is forced to resign because
exactly, unless he is forced to resign. And to me, I have nothing but respect for what Feige has achieved with the MCU. But for the last couple of years, it looks to me as if he is set upon tearing it all down. And Doomcock, he referenced a story that he had heard from one of his sources, so rumor alert, with how Chapek had asked him, what are you going to replace Iron Man with? To which Feige then replied, "Oh, we're going to replace him with Riri Williams. Going to be awesome. We can do this." To which Chapek then apparently responded, "But Riri Williams, Ironheart, and there is a Riri Williams Ironheart series in development. She can't even sustain her own comic book for 12 issues in a row or beyond 12 issues. What could possibly make you think that she's going to be as popular with general audiences as Iron Man?" To which Feige responded, "Well, I'm sure I can make it work.
I'm the genius. I made it work before." Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So basically, the relationship between the two are not amazing. Kamran, can you just briefly take us through the story between, briefly summarize for new viewers, the story between Feige and Chapek, and what's new? What do you think is going on right now?
Well, you've established there are 2 points that Doomcock revealed, and I believe both of those 2 points, because I've been wondering where and when this conflict between these two figures began, right? And it is a conflict between these two figures. I don't think there ever was a conflict between Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Chapek. I don't think she ever went at him. I think she just went at people that messed up the money bottom line, and Chapek's like, "I got to fix this problem," right? And he fixed it. Whereas Feige and him seem to be at loggerheads. I'm like, where did this begin? So Doomcock, our friend, is reporting that it began about a year ago when Iger was still going to these meetings, which suggests, this was the moment where Chapek still wasn't in charge, right? And Iger was the real shadow king. But Chapek was preparing for his moment, and he was heavily prepared. And so apparently Feige was stunned when Chapek's like, "I know this character, and I hear the sales of this character's books, Riri Williams. Nobody's buying this book, right? Why are you doing this?" And this was the moment where I think Feige realized, oh, this guy's actually going to try to do his job instead of being the fake CEO, and he's doing research on me. This guy's coming for me. So Feige woke up to that, right? Because he got embarrassed in front of the board. That wasn't, Feige thought this was just going to be, a kiss-a-thon. Everyone's going to kiss his butt, right? And make him look good at the board. I'm sure as Iger had done for years. And now he'd been embarrassed in front of very powerful people when he couldn't come up with an intelligent response beyond just trust me, right? So that was when his ego was activated. It's like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? He's going to mess with me? I'm going to take him down. That was a mistake. And then we saw the events that happened all this year. The pivotal event, which is the second thing that our friend Doomcock said, which is that Scarlett Johansson strangely filed a lawsuit after Black Widow against Disney, claiming that they by releasing it simultaneously on streaming, she lost a lot of money from her bonus that she was supposed to get from theatrical. And at the time, I was like, this makes no sense. She's been around the block for 20 years plus, right? And she knows you don't sue Disney. You're powerful enough that her agent can have one phone call with Chapek and there's a handshake and it's finished. And Disney claimed that in its legal filings that we had resolved this. We had given everything she wanted. Where is this coming from? And so the logic made no sense. And then she suddenly settled out of nowhere exactly at the moment when Shang-Chi started tanking, and then put out this wonderful kissing butt Disney press release of how she's excited to work with them and going to be doing this Tower of Terror and whatever. So I was like, all this feels to me like a storyline. It didn't feel like natural human behavior under these circumstances. And then when Doomcock revealed the shocking thing that he's hearing from his sources, that apparently when Feige said to her, which I always believed he had, "Hey, Scarlett, baby, this guy messed with your money. Can you just sue him? And we're going to take him down together. It's you and me together, baby, right?" And she said, "Uh-huh." And she went straight to Bob Chapek's office and said, "This guy's trying to screw with you." And Chapek's like, "Thank you for letting me know. Let's play with this. Let's put him in a position where, everyone, because Chapek, we've seen, will take the humiliation. We've seen it publicly. He will take being humiliated in the trades in order to outsmart his adversaries. His ego is big enough to know that I just need to win. I don't care what public opinion appears to be temporarily against me." So for a few weeks, people were like, "Oh, look at Chapek and screwing around with Scarlett Johansson." He took the hit. He took the hit because he knew the bigger thing was I have to trap Feige in a position where he cannot get out of. I believe that absolutely, because it's the only thing to me, as someone who survived the machinations of this town, that explains her behavior. And the thing that I wrote in my Patreon is, why would she betray Feige like this, who was her mentor for many years, for a decade, gave her this huge role, right? Why? It's like he betrayed her. He betrayed her when he put Captain Marvel before the Black Widow movie and took this nobody actress that people didn't want, right, in the fandom, and put her first over Black Widow. And basically the betrayal, one, and second, Feige says, I'm going to kill off Black Widow. So that means Scarlett's not going to be making any money off this character in the future, right? That's betrayal number 2. And so I was like, why would this, at the time, I was like, why would she be with Feige on this? It makes no sense. It's because she wasn't with Feige.
I would like to add that just because the guy's a nerd, just because the guy's a accountant, just because the guy comes from the world of finance, doesn't mean he doesn't know the fandoms. You got to watch out those accounting guys. Oh, wait, I'm one of them. Sometimes those accounting numbers guys, they actually are great fans of fandom and they actually know what's up and what's going on. Yeah. You would be surprised. And I think this is now the second or third, if not, no, this isn't the second. I have heard multiple things from one way. You know what stood out for me? Valiant and I we religiously and exhaustively watch these Disney earnings calls and listen to the tapes and stuff. We read them and all that stuff. The first call that he was on, when I first heard him speak, I basically made a comment. I don't know where I did it. I don't know if it was in Meet or Valiant or whatever, but I basically said, this guy isn't an average numbers nerd. Mm-hmm. Like he resounds with me like kind of like me. Like if I met this guy, I think I'm going to get along great with him. And I don't get along with a lot of accountants, a lot of finance people, because they're so uber warped and wrapped up in their own neuroses of numbers that they just, they're like, it's like talking to a wall or a dog. You're not sure if they understand or listen or whatnot. But this guy from the first Disney call, and maybe that comes from his products background, from having managed that division. Maybe it comes from some of the retail stuff. I'm not sure because I never had any exposure to him before he got selected as president. But from hearing him on that very first earnings call, and definitely on the last one or two, this is a guy who knows what's up. And the fact that he happens to be a black belt in numbers and money, that right there tells you that Kevin got, a guy like Kevin will underestimate, never underestimate the accountants and never underestimate to the extent to which the accountants might love fandoms.
Yeah, and I can believe a lot of what Doomcock said yesterday because, look, just like we were talking about earlier, the whole Riri Williams character, the Ironheart, the black female Iron Man, the new character, that was one of those Disney Marvel, we just pulled this one out of thin air back in, I think, 2017 is when this character was introduced, 2016. Mm-hmm. Had a total of maybe 10 comic books, and then that was it because nobody bought it. The Dominique Thorne is supposed to be playing her in Black Panther next year. She's going to be introduced in Wakanda Forever, by my understanding. And yeah, Disney Plus show with Ironheart and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that if that would have been a legitimate conversation at some point. Who are you replacing Iron Man with? We just lost our most valuable piece of property with Endgame, which I was fine with because I think it was a great end to a story arc. It was appropriate. But if that's the idea, let's replace this character that had that much charisma with Robert Downey Jr. with this character, again, that nobody has ever heard of. I mean, has only been around for 3 years or so and only had 10 or 12 comic books come out.
And they never sold.
No,
they never sold.
No, if they'd sold, there would have been more than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot more. They'd still be running. So, I mean, again, this is one of these things that, like Cameron and I kept discussing. It's like, once everybody else around Feige was gone, once Favreau had moved on, once Ike Perlmutter, regardless if you believe the allegations that Feige made about him, true or false, doesn't matter. Once Perlmutter moved on, after that 2015, 2016 era, taking into account all of the Marvel properties and movies that were already in development at that point, all the fresh new stuff from that point moving forward, what Feige has had his hands on is a sole arbiter of, okay, has not been terribly big time with fans. I mean, it does not have the same magic that it had up to that point. Mm-hmm. Even taking characters like Guardians of the Galaxy, which nobody had really heard of, but it was cast with such a charismatic crew and 5 people that worked great together. Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, and then you had Bradley Cooper doing Rocket and so on and so forth. It worked. It was great. It was fun. Now we're getting marketing lectures about, social political issues every time we get a Marvel movie and a trailer drop.
And Iron Man is irreplaceable. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. There are wonderful characters out there. There are. And I'm sure there are some that we haven't discovered yet. But he's irreplaceable. We're not ever going to see another character like this. And go ahead and try and find another character who can connect with with another actor who can connect with a character like Robert Downey Jr. Go ahead and do it, because Robert Downey Jr., and I've said this before, made us fall in love with Iron Man. I love that character, and he feels very real to me. It was like an explosion. It was an incredible connection that they had, and he became very real and is very real for a lot of people, and will continue to be so.
And Marvel and Disney didn't want him. It took Jon Favreau went to bat like 40 times to get him that role. He's like, no, trust me. You got to have RDJ doing this, because Favreau and he were good friends. I mean, it was Favreau that put that one together, because otherwise you would have had somebody completely different. Disney did not
Tom
want
Cruise. Avi Arad wanted Tom Cruise apparently for that role. Or if I don't recall right now. Maybe he was one that actually did want Favreau. I don't recall right now in the second, but there were some very powerful producers at the time who wanted Tom Cruise. Thank God they didn't get their way. And everyone smashed that like. Get us to 1,000 likes here. We have almost 1,900 watching, and fewer likes than that.
Yeah,
Let's
and this
put
is
it
one
that
of our
way.
best streams. I think the content is great, and we have the incredibly lovely RrrrMmmmm.
Oh, thank you, Cameron.
If you don't like it for me, you don't like it for Mike, you don't like it for Valiant, like it for her. What kind of men are you in this chat?
Thank you.
But I wanted to say what's interesting about everything the Valiant said, is correct with regard, in my view. I mean, I think with regard to who Feige really is, and we're seeing an unmasking here. I have assumed that Kevin Feige was the reason for all this wonderful success for the last decade of MCU. Now that he's fully in control, I think we're beginning to see maybe he wasn't the reason. Maybe there are other people like Jon Favreau, like Mr. Perlmutter, that really were the reason. And then maybe there's people whose names we don't know that are behind the scenes that had a lot more influence, who are now don't have that influence anymore. And so it's amazingly parallel to Ms. Kennedy's situation, Kathleen Kennedy, his sister studio head inside of Disney, that her name is on 40 of the biggest movies in human history, right? And then the moment she's given power, we see what she does with it, which she doesn't know what she's doing, which means after 40 movies, you haven't learned anything. You haven't learned how to make a movie in 40 movies, 40 like blockbuster movies. You haven't learned how to do it. So what were you doing?
I would say this is even worse, because Feige has been a producer on every one of them. However, you know what I think? I think that Kevin Feige is probably very much like George Lucas or Gene Roddenberry, by which I mean that he is someone that is a true visionary. He is someone who is both a fan and an accountant, if you will, and a producer. So he is someone that understands more about these comics and these properties than any other producer does. And that has been very important in him being as successful as he is. But at the same time, while he may be the man with the overall plan, I do not doubt that for 1 second. Just like George Lucas, when he made the original trilogy, he wasn't alone. He had people helping him. Some of those people were named. Some of them he tried to erase from history. And I think that's exactly the same thing that was going on behind the scenes of Marvel. Like, we know that Marvel Studios, they had a creative committee. And they had Ike Perlmutter, who was there. And I know that he gave, Feige a hard time and again. And then at one point, once Feige had proved himself enough, he was able to go directly to Bob Iger and say, get rid of Perlmutter and get rid of the creative committee, or I walk. And Iger, he basically listened. And since that point onwards, it's been Feige and Feige alone that's been fully in control. But what I think is that just like, I think what happened then is the same thing as what happened with George Lucas when he made the prequel trilogies. It was his vision, but he had no one to steer him when he lost sight of his own creation. You always need something of an editor, someone that can keep you in check. And Feige, he kept the filmmakers in check for a very long time, but when there were no one keeping him in check, when there were no one reining him in, when Ike Perlmutter wasn't there to tell him, this doesn't sell, this isn't financially viable, when he removed everyone that gave him any kind of resistance, so he was surrounded by only yes men, plus maybe people in the club saying, "Hey, do this," and you'll
and
get to
they're
go to
rooting
this
for him to
cocktail
fail.
party.
They're rooting for him to fail. I mean,
That's right there
these
what I
guys
want
are
to
people.
jump on.
They
What
don't
you
want
just
him.
said, Cameron, I want to explore that deeper with
Yeah.
you and everybody in the 2,000 people that are watching us. I have been astounded how, okay, there's this shootout going back and forth, but I've been around these. It's been a long time since I was around these types of people. But if he was such an ingrained member of the club, okay, yeah, he's in the club, but there's a big difference between legacy club and some of the people that are fly by nights. They're in the club, but they're right out of the club. You know, they come in as kind of guest members and then they're right out. And I have not seen especially with what's happening with the reviews, I have not seen other people taking a stand for this guy and protecting this guy. And I gotta wonder, which I mentioned on your Patreon, is I'm wondering if like maybe he's being led into his woke doomdom. A woke doomdom where they're letting himself walk into a fire and watching himself get roasted. I mean, okay, yeah, maybe there's a little celebration here, little articles that he can probably a little war going on. But I don't believe that this guy's an ingrained member of the club. I think he's got like a provisional pass. And if he's not careful, he'll be right out of the club at any point in time, which is okay by me.
Well, I mean, you did raise this on Patreon. I'm actually going to respond to it in depth on that article. But I will say here, I've been saying this now for 6 months on this channel here, which is that that people are giving Feige bad advice. Whatever other personal issues he has, and he's made bad choices with regard to Captain Marvel, which are very personal, right? He's made those choices from within himself, but he's also, I really do believe, getting bad advice from ill-intentioned people. Because, again, my experience, having been provisionally broken into the club when I got, when my show Sleeper Cell got an Emmy nomination, Golden Globe nomination, I was being invited to houses of billionaires, right? I mean, I was going to these huge mansions and going into these parties. And I remember one of these house of billionaires moments where I walk in and the look on someone who I had known in the industry, when he saw me there was a look of, what the hell? Why is this guy here, right? There was a look of shock and irritation that I was actually invited to this party, right? And I could see it when it wasn't even masked, it was there. And his complete like discomfort with my presence there, it blew me away because I was like, look, I was invited by my agents and, but I had reached a level where my agents felt that I would be welcome in that place. And then some people were like, this Pakistani Muslim guy, he's got one flash out of the pan thing, whatever. This guy, I don't want this guy around. And I directly experienced that feeling. This person was legacy club member. To them, this is an aristocracy, a feudal aristocracy that is not, you don't buy your way into it. You don't earn your way into it. You are born into it. That is their sense of superiority, which covers their insecurity that they don't actually have a way to buy themselves into it, right? They don't have the talent and the entrepreneurialism of someone like a Feige, right? Who basically took, with the help of others, took this impossible task of making these Marvel movies what they became, right? So that really makes these people feel very agitated and feel very threatened when an entrepreneur enters into that club, right? It's that feeling of, we're gonna, either you're gonna work for us or we're gonna humiliate you and put you out, but you're never gonna be one of us. And I said that 6 months ago here when I started watching the public beginning of dethroning a Feige. I said, this guy's getting bad advice. And I knew why, because I remembered that moment at the party. And the guy's like, what's this guy doing here? Yeah,
Are you saying this is someone that you, brother? I apologize. I didn't know you talked about it before. Are you saying this is someone that you knew? This is someone that you knew outside of the club event that you're talking about. That's someone like
yeah. This is a producer. It's a big TV producer who I had interacted with. It was perfectly friendly in the outside world of normies, of like, we're working on a TV show, blah blah. The moment I get into this billionaire's mansion, and it was literally a billionaire, and it was I'll say it was Haim Saban who became a billionaire off the Power Rangers thing, and he has a huge mansion up in Bel Air, right, which I had to drive through many strange things to find, right, because it is that secluded, and it's the biggest place I've ever been in my life. And I walk in and there's famous people all around me. And then I just happen, I'm getting, I go get a cocktail, whatever, non-alcoholic, because that's me, get one. And I'm walking around and people are like, oh, nice. Hello. Nice to meet you. And then they didn't know who I was. I'm just whatever. But then the person who knew me was there, and the look on his face and the disrespect he showed me, like he literally like stepped away from the group. We were all talking because it so offended him. It sort of degraded his membership This little brown guy, nobody from Pakistan, who had like one success, right, a few weeks ago. Yeah, he got an Emmy nomination, whatever. That doesn't earn you the right to be amongst my peers. He was fine with me as long as I wasn't amongst the special peers. That's Feige.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. So who would be giving him bad advice? Would this be actors? Would this be his agent? Would this be
No, this would be other rich people, the people whose names you don't see. These are the people behind the scenes who are the children. Like I once went to, in the highlight of my being allowed into the club, I was once invited to a nice dinner party where and it was hosted by the daughter of one of the founders of ABC, the network. She was the daughter of the founder of this network, right? And again, here, legacy, right? I mean, she hasn't done anything, right? But her dad created the ABC network, right? Was one of the creators. And I was sitting there with incredibly famous people, in a little dinner party, right? And it is just, that's the thing, is that's the world. And these are the people whose names, I mean, I'd never heard of her. And I got this invitation from my agents. Oh, you've been invited to this and you really got to go. She's very important. I was like, in what way is she important? It's because she's important behind the scenes, right? She's part of the family legacy of people that founded this town.
So this is the real money of Hollywood.
The real money and the real people that are making phone calls, and sometimes the real people inviting you to the special party. The special party where the Eyes Wide Shut stuff happens. Oops, can't say that, right? But that's that world, and you can't get to that level unless you get into that cocktail party, which is the entry level of testing you in the club, right? And obviously, people decided conservative Muslim guy. I don't think we're going to invite him to the special party, right? I think we're going to stop it right here. And so that was the test. Feige bumbled in further than he expected, and then they said, okay, we don't really. This guy's sort of weirdo geek nerd, guy. I don't think we're going to let him go any further than this. Time to let him hang dry.
Well, I don't want to steal Andre's thunder, but I think he's back, and I do think we should ask Cameron because I know your time's limited. I got
about 10 minutes, guys.
Okay, so Andre, I think we should ask Cameron the question we always ask on Fridays, which is, what's your prediction of what's going to come next?
Yeah, let's do that. Comment on prediction time. What's going on?
Prediction time. And so my prediction is this, and I appreciate that we had our lovely friend here who really liked Eternals, and I'm glad she was able to put positive, because I'm sure there are people in the chat that like it, and I'm sure from what we're seeing in the initial responses on Rotten Tomatoes, a lot of the audience does like it. So wonderful that people are enjoying it. However, that's not the issue that we're seeing. What we're seeing is on the Rotten Tomatoes, as I mentioned, the major news outlets from the Los Angeles Times, the BBC, Slate, and others, the big club news outlets are panning it aggressively. So that's an agenda, which they're coming after this film. They're coming after Kevin Feige, who is the champion of this film. And so for me, this is the acceleration of what we've been talking about on Midnight's Edge now for several months, which is the downfall of Kevin Feige. And now that the legacy media press, the prestige club press, is lambasting him for the very things they praised him for before, which is empty virtue signaling. Now they're like, these are empty virtue signaling. So you see how quickly the knives turn on your ally, right? When they were trying to get him out of the club permanently. And so my prediction is that the Eternals will probably do fine. I think it will probably end up around Shang-Chi numbers, and we can get Valiant Renegade's perspective on that. I don't think it's going to be a massive hit. And regardless, even if it does better than Shang-Chi, the system is now against Feige, because he made the mistake of going against the king and missing, which is, even though Bob Chapek is not part of the club and the club doesn't like him, he's got the throne right now. And so the smarter courtiers understand that there's nothing more embarrassing that you try to overthrow the king and you fail. So it's like, you failed me for the last time, Feige. We needed to get this guy out. You walked into all these idiotic traps that he set. And so now the club is embarrassed by him because he's made himself look like a fool and made their plan to remove Chapek, and I believe there is a desire to remove him from the club. It made that plan hollow, at least for the time being. So I believe my prediction is that Kevin Feige's resignation is coming in 2022. I believe that after Eternals, even if Eternals is financially successful, the club press will present it as a disaster. You'll see it, you'll see it in the news, and it won't be the trades. It won't be Deadline, which remains pro Kevin Feige. You will see that Deadline, hypes up everything that he does. It won't be that. It'll be with Hollywood Reporter. It will be, Forbes magazine. It will be the places that we've seen
Daily Mail.
Daily Mail, the European papers and the British papers. It'll be that. It will be Vanity Fair, which is now becoming a little bit of telling the club it has to move in a certain direction. It'll be the Atlantic. All these things will start piling up. And I do think that if Mr. Feige doesn't get the hint, he already knows he's in trouble. But I do believe he still thinks he can fight back. I think he's still trying things like we saw a couple of weeks ago, this bizarre thing where some former Disney Imagineers had done a petition a year ago to fire Bob Chapek for XYZ reasons. That petition had died a year ago. No one paid attention to online petition. Suddenly, a couple of weeks ago, we start seeing in the fan press that, oh, this petition is out there and people are signing it. And who's connected to the fans? It's Mr. Feige. So I have a feeling that he still tried to get back at Chapek in a very weak. I mean, this isn't. He's out of bullets. He's using darts right now. You know, it's point. I don't think the darts even have pointy points, right? I think he's out of ammo, and he's using this nonsense to still try to, stab at Chapek, which is only going to piss off the dragon more. So I don't think he can survive this. I think no matter how Eternals does, the system wants him out. And so I think that if he wises up, Kevin Feige will reach an agreement to receive some kind of golden parachute and some honors. And you'll know that that's happened because you'll see the sudden press change, right? This is my prediction. You'll know that Kevin Feige has reached a settlement for his eventual departure in the same way that I believe has happened with Kathleen Kennedy. And you're starting, you see praise and you start seeing all that start happening. And the tone in the news articles changes to praising. That's to get him out without any more drama, right? If he continues to resist, which is what I think he will do, I think he will fight all the way until his ship goes down. That's what I think he will do based on what I'm seeing. Then I think you're going to see the bigger guns come out. You've had now attacks on his creative judgment with the people like the Russo brothers revealing how he wanted to kill off the major Avengers, which irritated people in the fan base and made him look stupid to investors, right? So those are attacks on his.
Come out and basically say you don't need to see this movie. And even show screenshots of fans lambasting the movie and show them to their readers who otherwise wouldn't see them.
Correct, and that was done intentionally to create a narrative, right? So those are attacks on his management, creative choices, right? If he continues down this path, which I believe he will, I believe you'll start seeing the attacks get nastier on a personal level. You're going to start seeing stories appearing about problems inside the actual behavior of Kevin Feige or allegations against him within Marvel. And of course, the trump card, which is the dangerous card, which they don't like to use until they have no choice, is the Me Too card, right? Which is, what exactly were you doing with certain actresses who might have gotten very aggressively pushed by your, new strategy, right? And when that starts happening, that's when the kill shot is coming, where they're just going to take him out, and he'll be forced to resign in humiliation. And if he's smart, he won't let it get to that place. But I think it's coming to that place, and you'll see it. You'll know it it will be. I expect that in the near future we'll be doing one of these, Cameron said so on Midnight's Edge, and here's what happened videos, because I just see him going down this path, and I don't see him realizing that he's just gonna maybe self-destructive, maybe just wants to go down in flames, as a phoenix type figure and thinks he'll resurrect. He won't resurrect if he goes down that path. Because
Cameron, I believe I made this comment I think before when you and I were on Friday, and your response was amazing. Well, first of all, we've been playing Cameron as right for I don't even know how long. Like at this point, we're like need to have a 1-year anniversary. But what I wanted to throw out is that having been around these people, there are two things that have always stood out to me when I was around them. One was that how regardless of politics, the interests of money always seem to align them with one another, regardless of whatever the stated political whims of the day are. And the second thing, which is that I wanted you to react to, which is that this is probably a very good thing for us going forward for creativity. Like as a creator, now I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit more personal, which is that.
And I only got 2 minutes, Mike, so I'm going to have to.
For you as a writer, are you optimistic for our future as fans, for people like you and others that are great work?
I'm absolutely optimistic, and I've said that from a sincere place, not just from a delusional, I want it to be case, because I'm seeing the dynamics here. I'm seeing the rise of good storytelling like Dune. I'm seeing the destruction of the woke narrative. People are saying, well, there's still all these things like Riri Williams' show. in development. I'm like, yeah, they may never see the light of day. Just like I don't believe we're ever going to see The Acolyte the light of day. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think we're at an incredible place where the pressures of history are hitting this industry, the pressures of economics, and I think that's going to lead to good storytelling as a byproduct. It's not their intention; it's a byproduct. And that's what it is. So my friends, I have to apologize. I know there may be super chats that I'm missing, and I apologize to any of you who put a super chat. But I actually have a commitment, to another channel right now. So it's 11. So my apologies to all of you that I do need to head out.
Yes, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Really appreciate it, and thanks for predictions and analysis. And we look forward to having you again next Friday to see what news then, possibly even Toxic Femininity on Monday.
Yeah, and I want to do one last plug here because I always get a lot of subscribers after I come on Midnight's Edge. Come check out my Patreon. All the stuff that I'm saying here, I say much more bluntly, and I say with a lot more detail and reveal some things I can't say publicly on my Patreon about my analysis of Hollywood. I'm also offering writing consulting services through that Patreon, discounted services for the higher level members. If you have a screenplay or book or manuscript or a few chapters or whatever, you just want a professional writer who's actually published books professionally and been in Hollywood for 20 years. I'm offering that, and I have almost a dozen clients now through the Patreon, and they so far seem to be extremely happy with the feedback. I talk to you, I get on Zoom with you, and we go over your project in depth. And so please come join me there. It supports me. It helps me to keep surviving a town that doesn't want me in those parties. And as Andre knows, I've got a few things I'd like to be able to announce on Midnight's Edge, but I had to wait until some legal contracts are done. But hopefully it's because you guys supported me all this time that allowed me to get to a place where those things were possible.
That is awesome. And with that, Kamran, thanks for joining us. I'll make a note of any questions that we may miss so that we can get back to those at a later time here. But for right now, thanks for joining.
And please come be a regular, because your feminine energy and your wisdom has made this such a lovely chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. It's a pleasure seeing you as always.
And hopefully we'll see each other when you come visit Southern California. So, all right, guys, God bless. I got to take off. Peace.
Bye.
Love you. Take care, Mike. Peace.
Salam, brother.
Excellent. But we are not going anywhere because we still have much ground to cover left. And we have a whole ton of super chats to go through. We haven't gotten to them yet. We haven't missed anything, and we won't, because we never leave a super chat behind. So before we move on to the next order of business, we're going to run through a couple of these classic super chats. And the one where we left off was Olaf van S, who says for €2, awesome start of my weekend with an amazing panel. Yes, indeed. Callum Lyle says for $2 Kamran has a third eye. It certainly seems that way. He also said for another $5 Evelyn looks hot, but the damage has been done, caused by Hollywood's biggest clown. I guess you mean Kevin Smith. And yeah, Evelyn was, she was all pretty hot, wasn't she? Daryl the Derelict says for $5, hail everybody. Hey chat, show your appreciation for these quality streams and hit the like button. Hope you all have a spectacular day. And yes, listen to Daryl, hit that like button. Bevan Warren says for $5, is it me, or are we seeing a trend of movies that have major issues having plot details leaked months ahead? Are productions trying to warn people? That's a good question. I can say that there have always been leaks, but running this channel, I can also say from personal experience that you often have people working on properties that they love, and then they see that they go in a completely bonkers direction, and then deliberate leaks to places like Midnight's Edge, like Doomcock, and others happen specifically because they want to get the word out there in the hopes of changing it. That certainly is my experience. How about the rest of you? Are those observations that you are generally in agreement with?
Yeah, I would say yes. I remember it used to be internet leaks, and someone would post something on Reddit or, maybe even somewhere else. But yes, I think that maybe this is the only way people can possibly get word out there somewhat anonymously now.
Yeah. And Valiant Renegade, have you gotten any tips your way yet?
No, I haven't, but I really don't, I don't originate rumor stories on my channel. It's not what I do. Now, that being said, I'm not opposed if somebody wants to tell me something. I'd be interested to listen. Always try to balance it against, gut feelings versus what else is out there. But yeah, no, I look, I think these companies, why wouldn't you use that methodology? I mean, if you want to try to get something out through back channels, there's plenty of places to do it. I think it's perfectly plausible.
If you want to go directly to the audience, then YouTube is the place to do it. And we know that channels like ours, Doomcox and others, Gary from Nerdrotic, do have Hollywood's attention.
Mm-hmm.
We know that with 100% certainty. So yeah, I do believe that even in offices like Bad Robot and The Secret Hideout, they have like printed out Midnight's Edge logos and put them on their dartboards and stuff. So yeah. And then moving on, then we have Mr. Tickle Trunk, who says for $2 Canadian, neckbeard hero when? Need to see myself on screen. Oh yeah, but you will all the time as the villain, don't you know? That's what you get being a white man. And at the end, Falardo says for $5 Canadian, I have a feeling the anti-religious message in the Eternals could very well also have been a reason why the Saudis decided to drop it. And that may have factored in, but I think the primary reason was the gay relationship involving actually an Arab actor. So I think that may have been a big part of it, which of course would be ironic because the movie would then be banned in China because of the Chinese director who isn't too popular with the Chinese authorities. And in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, the actor from there engaging in homosexual activities on screen might have banned it there. So, yeah, I guess that's when representation goes wrong. And DS Ford said for $20. Thank you so much. Hail Andre, Kamran, Mike, Renegade, and the lovely RrrrMmmmm. This super chat is my way of saying F you to the Eternals movie. I encourage others to support this channel rather than give these people in Hollywood your money. And yeah, I'm not going to disagree with DS Ford in the slightest. I will only say thanks for your support and your words of encouragement. So that is most appreciated. And then STR Red Wolf said for $10, most every review, including Andre's, can be boiled down to it's not even worth seeing on Disney Plus, let alone pirating. Don't go on the high seas, folks, lest you get the internet seasickness. Indeed. And then he has like a surf and a shark sticker there for some weird reason. And Hypergiver 2 says for $5, the movie looks bad. Can't wait to see the already superior Axel Brown parody. Rod Thunderheart. And you're going to have to... no, actually... Valiant, can you say Rob Thunderheart in an amazing announcer voice?
Rod Thunderheart.
There we go. And Rob Thunderheart, he says, I just had to get back to the message here. Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning. Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Indeed, that is today. And Callum Lyle said for $5 Australian, is Kevin Feige trying to get in? I'm gonna have to do some censoring here because this could be an issue before you know it. Is Kevin Feige trying to get in bed with a certain actress associated with Captain Marvel, especially how he heavily promotes said actress and said actress's activism? No comment until we hear it in the press. That's all I'm going to say about that. And Valiant, can you say the name one more time?
Rod Thunderheart.
And he says for another $5 Canadian, Hail Andre, Mike the Mexican Iron Man, and Valiant Renegade. So I saw a lot of rumor clickbait articles claiming Andrew Garfield is in No Way Home. What have you heard? Well, what I have heard for Mikey certainly years ago is that, yeah, he's in it. They're trying to save the surprise, but he's in it. Organic Vistas says for $4.99, seeing Dune in theater again, skipping Eternals. Long live freedom, unity, free speech, and storylines which ring true. My name is Mike. Oh, well, thank you, Organic Vistas. I'll be sure to let our Mike know of that.
I'm glad the chat liked the Rod Thunder. I'm doing my best. I don't have my usual. I'm still under the weather. So if that sounded good to you guys, thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm.
You did a great job.
You're doing it better than I ever could. So. And Douglas Marsh says for £10 Hail Midnighters. Got in from work and saw you streaming. Oh, that's brilliant. Andre, you rate as my second coolest Norwegian. Sorry, Morten Harket is number one. As for Eternals, I won't see it, as it falls short of Kirby's vision. Yeah, that's awesome, and I'm very happy to take the number 2 spot behind Morten Harket. For those that do not know, Morten Harket is the lead singer of Aha, so he would be the one who sung the Bond theme for The Living Daylights, and also the song Take On Me. That's that guy. He is the coolest Norwegian, whereas I'm happy to take the number 2 spot after that.
And they also had a documentary that came out recently, didn't they, Andre?
Yeah, they did. And also they had like this, I was at a concert at theirs like more than 10 years ago, which was their farewell concert when they were breaking up the group and retiring forever. They've released 2 albums and had like 10 concerts since. So yeah, that didn't really stick. Yeah, no, he's cool, especially if you actually know Norwegian and you hear him talk in public. That's he's something. I don't know if cool is the word, but he's definitely an intriguing character. And Chaos Sonic 1 sent us 2 $5 super chats in a row. Part 1 of which says, this movie does foreshadow Galactus. But the thing is, his main job is while he is Eater of Worlds, he is supposed to kill the celestial eggs. But any planet that has life has a celestial egg, which Galactus has to make sure the Celestials don't overpopulate. Basically, we're all screwed. Okay, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, because I was like struggling with that. Like, what's the point of Galactus then? When the Celestials hatching perform the same thing that Galactus does in the comics. But if the reason is that what Galactus is actually doing is ending his hunger by eating Celestials, well, then I guess you can work with that. But again, then this movie is still completely redundant because Galactus isn't set up in any way, shape, or form. And the thing about the Celestials, that's one sentence setup that you don't need this movie for. So yeah, waste of time there. And William Sova says for $10, hey everybody, the more I hear about this film, the more I feel like they should have stuck closer to the original comic, which you could then easily tie in with the MCU Asgard due to the similar origins. Yeah, the movie actually does reference Thor and everything like that. And also, I think you might have appreciated it staying closer to the source material, because then Icarus wouldn't have beat up and backstabbed his girlfriend.
Yeah, it's still very hard to wrap my head around it because it's just it's cruel and unnatural. And I don't think that it was a good choice to go with that storyline.
Icarus is the one played by Richard Madden, right?
I'm sorry?
I said Icarus is the one that Richard Madden plays from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. That's the one.
That's
the one who flew too close to the sun in mythology.
Yes.
Right. No, I know the character. I just couldn't remember who played him in the movie.
Yeah.
I figured it was okay. Yeah, Rob Stark. Okay.
He's a very attractive man who plays the role, and you start off, very happy. Well, at least I was very happy to see him playing that role, and then. What happened, I was like, I don't feel so good anymore about him. So
evidently neither did he, because that's the most stupid ending of a character I've ever seen.
I didn't like
as a father, I'm sure we can all agree. I don't know if you have kids or not, but I'm not going to take my kid to see a movie where some guy's doing this to some chick. I mean, I'm going to go see it this weekend and review it and do some analytical calculations, but I'm not going to take my 8-year-old son to see something like that on stage, on film.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't blame you. And, it's too bad they did that. It could have been anything else. It could have, like I said, a parasite or some other horrible force, some sort of transference from the deviants to him or something like that. Make it interesting, but not just, I'm just going to betray, someone that I love so much. I don't know.
He did feel so bad that he offed himself afterwards, though. Or was that because he failed in the end?
I didn't like that ending either.
It was ridiculous. Okay, spoiler time. I'm going to spoil the ending. What happens with the character before we move on here. Mm-hmm. Because in Greek mythology, you have the legend of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun so that his wings melted and he fell into the ocean. In this movie, we are told that Sprite, the storyteller, is the one that gave that story to the Greeks. And the Icarus of that story is actually the Icarus we're seeing in this movie. And then towards the end, after he's beaten up his girlfriend, and he's still lost because he wasn't able to stop the other Eternals from going against their creator and killing trillions of lives by way of aborting the Celestial before it was born. So then he decides that, it's time to off myself here. And you know how he does it? He flies into the sun.
It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And very cliche, and certainly didn't wanted 2 seconds to come up with that idea.
You know what else it is?
It was profound.
You know what else it is he must have seen the last episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Battlestar Galactica ends.
Yeah, but there weren't any people in it.
Battlestar Galactica at least had some style, it was a little different.
No, one of the what do you mean? One of the 5 was in the ship. He's the one who commandeered the whole fleet into the sun.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that. I thought that that particular ending was so stupid. Hey, let's go back to the Stone Age. Let's forget everything so it can all happen again. And all the ships that we're going to need if the Silent finds us, let's just send them all into the sun. Oh my God, what an ending. Although it's a great series, but yeah.
If he, this mission that he was on was so important and the kicker also is the fact that he kind of reneges at the last minute, right, Andre? Where, he was so determined that he was right all that time fighting everybody. And then he's kind of like, I'm not going to fight anymore. I've just given up. That also didn't feel correct. There would have been something else going on in his mind or another plan. He wouldn't have killed himself. He would have just, gone to another planet. That's what he would have done.
Yeah. And throw baritone, just to be clear, it was a superhero fight, but he was beating her in that superhero fight, and that's still pretty out of character.
Yeah, because it's someone, just to respond to that, I don't know where they joined in on the discussion, but he's in love with Cersei, and this is the woman that he loves and cherishes. And in fact, there's even a love scene where they're, essentially nude on a rock somewhere, making love together. It's beautiful. And then the next thing he's disagrees with her more or less and her actions. And his response is that I have to prevent her from doing this. I'm going to fight her. And I just didn't think that any man anywhere would ever do something like this with the woman you love. You're not going to fight that woman, but he does. He gets into physical altercation, and I just can't believe that any man would ever do that, because it's
as
just
Master Clockwork points out, he must have been a male feminist.
Well, I mean, they're Eternals. I mean, don't they have like Eternals couples therapy? I mean, in like the billions of years or thousands of years they've been in existence, they didn't like create their own like mental health insurance program. I mean, they're Eternals, for God's sake. Come on.
Yeah, it did. It's called having their hard drives wiped and reprogrammed for the next mission. That's all the therapy they need. Yeah, and also in terms of how heroic Icarus reportedly was in the comics, which again I say I never read. I only report what was relayed to me by people who have read it. But Peter Smigelski got something else out of it. It says for $20. Icarus was never a real hero in the original story. He killed his older, more talented, smarter, better brother. He also tricked his father to invent the wings in the first place. He wasn't a good character. Definitely a beta male. Oh, well, there you go. He wasn't much better here, though. And then moving on with the Super Chats, because we have another story to cover here. I just want to get caught up on the Super Chats first. Then we had, let's see. Then we had Revkor, who said, frankly, I think the best option is to separate this from the MCU. It hurts way too many things universe-wise. And yeah, they already hinted that this might not get a follow-up, so we'll see how the reception is. And then Chaos Sonic 1 follows up his earlier Super Chats with another $5, saying, this movie is actually worse. In comics, the Eternals, the deviants are the subspecies of human evolution, with mutants being the future potential. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know. Yeah, well, then they definitely missed it here. Or dropped the ball on that one. And Spider Unlimited says for $9.99, listening in the background, in the process of moving, so here is support. Oh, well, thank you. And be careful with moving, and I hope you're moving somewhere awesome. And Chaos Sonic sent another 2 Super Chats saying, one, I sent several part messages to clarify things. Yeah, we're getting them. And also, it's frustrating that Athena and Crow in the comics are secret lovers. Both love each other and are willing to betray their own kind to save each other. So yeah, clearly this wasn't a good adaptation. And he also concludes with, watch Ghostbusters instead of this movie. Yeah, luckily I've heard good things about that. And DCP wondered for $2, why would you think negative reviews are a narrative? And yeah, Kamran kind of answered this already, and that would be because the huge industry publications, the ones that, usually won't give Disney movies and stuff like that negative reviews because of the ownership structure and stuff like that, well, the protection is now off, evidently. And that is why you're seeing negative reviews from publications that have never given a Marvel movie a negative review before, because of political machinations. So if you didn't hear what Kamran said, then just rewind till you get to Kamran talking about it, and he'll break that down in more detail, or rather he did break it down in more detail. Graph Tanker 98 said for $4.99, I think the executives wanted this to fail so they can get out of the woke business, looking for a way out. Yeah, that's certainly the case with Bob Chapek. And Callum Lyle said for $10 Australian, I find it disturbing that a scene like what you described with Sprite and that adult man is mostly written by people who are against dolphin loving. And mostly women, no offense, like that cutest director. So, yeah. And we do have a couple of more Super Chats here, but so we don't spend like half an hour on only that, let us get into our next story. And Valiant, this is something that you discovered. Set it up. What are we talking about?
Well, You know, I put out the video this morning, and somebody had dropped a comment on it, just reminding me of something I really hadn't looked at in a while, and I was amazed at the striking resemblance between these two things. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, on the box office side at this point for the Eternals. So just to set this up, Box Office Pro, great website. They tend to give us some good tracking data weeks before a movie comes out, talking about based on interest levels that they're gauging on the type of movie it is, you know, what the trends are, what the ticket pre-sales are. You know, a few weeks ago, we got some great stories about how the Eternals was $2.5 million in advanced ticket pre-sales on the day that the tickets were available, which is great. Biggest record we've had so far post-pandemic. Yada, yada, yada. About 900,000 ahead of Shang-Chi, 400,000 or so ahead of Black Widow. Everything sounds great. Then all of a sudden the tracking starts going down. They went from originally planning a projected opening between 102 and 125 million opening weekend for Eternals to about a week ago, of course, after the Rotten Tomatoes score started coming out, and that's where this is going. The Rotten Tomato scores come out, and then they started lowering those weekend projections for the Eternals this weekend, now between, I think, 80 and 100. And now we're seeing projections that are floating now between, I think, 65 and 85. So if you look this morning, you see from Deadline and you see from Box Office Pro, I believe, as well, a few other places, they're thinking it's going to be around a $75 million weekend. So we've come down a far cry, and that's kind of on a higher end. We've come down a far cry from where we were at 125, 130 million. Just
I heard like 100 million predictions.
100 was on the low end initially.
1 month ago I heard that it was like tracking 100 million.
100 to 125 a month ago. That was the low high from Box Office Pro, and then it dropped to 80 to 100 or so. Now they're thinking between 65 and 85. So it keeps going down. Now it has to do with this, and I'm going to try to let me see if I can share my screen here real quick.
You want me to bring it up for you?
Yeah, if you can.
Yep, you got it.
I'm gonna do the share. Okay. Go for it. All right, so here we are right now, folks. This is right now. I just refreshed this. This is the Eternals, and that's what we've been talking about. And we talked about, just as Cameron was talking about, just as Andre reiterated, it's very interesting when we look at these numbers right here, when we see a 50% tomato meter score for the professional critics reviews, right? And that's what they're talking about, is we've never seen this before for an MCU film. This is the 25th or 26th, whatever we're on now, Marvel Cinematic Universe family of films. The lowest one we've ever had to date was Thor: The Dark World. That was at 66%. It was still fresh. Rotten Tomato score. Now, that's why it's so striking to see the critics at this point. All of a sudden, they feel very comfortable just jumping on this. And if you look at the top critics in that metric, it's not even 50%. It's lower than that. By top critics, I mean the people like Los Angeles Times, New York Times, big outfits like that. RogerEbert.com or whatever. Big critics, Detroit Press, Chicago Tribune, the big newspapers, the big publications. They're feeling comfortable now being honest about this. And again, a lot of the fresh scores that they have in here basically say the same thing like we started the show with, where it's talking about it being boring and they didn't like it, but fresh tomato, here you go. So everybody thinks Rotten Tomatoes, don't trust the critic score, which I would 90% of the time plus agree with. Absolutely. Because they look at things differently than audiences. And everybody says, the audience score matters a lot more. Well, here's the audience score right now, 86%. After the discussions that we've had, after you've heard from people that have seen the movie, whether they liked it or not, doesn't seem to me that this has this much enthusiasm behind it. Now, I want to show you this, and this is what somebody reminded me of this morning. Get ready. You want to see another movie this happened to?
Yeah, go for it. Show us.
Boom. Right here. The same exact score. Rise of Skywalker with a 52% splatty critic review, but an 86% audience score. Now, does anybody believe that audience score? Anybody? Anybody?
I don't.
No.
Considering that, if we just look at Rise of Skywalker, both John Campea and Scott Mendelson freaking hated that movie, and I don't know if a single person in my life that actually liked it. On the contrary, everyone I know thought it was a confusing, unbelievable mess. That it would have an audience rating of 86% sounds weird to me.
It does. And this just goes to show, folks, that depending on the situation, we think that, we know how the critic scores work, right? These critics, they go and do these professional reviews, especially the people that are considered the upper echelon, the top critics, like I said. They get lots of perks from Disney. They get goodie bags. They get, we know every studio does this. This is not just Disney. This is all out there. These guys get wined and dined. They want to be friendly because people look at this, and this does impact a movie's actual financial performance, which the financial performance for a movie at the end of the day is all that matters, because Hollywood's still a business. They're still in the business not of making movies, but of making money, as every business is. Making movies is just how they happen to do it. So these scores do impact that. But it just goes to show you that depending on how things go down, and look, for different reasons, right? So if I go back to this, oops, keep hitting the wrong one. If I go back to this, Rise of Skywalker, what happened here? Why did the critics lambast this movie? Well, it's because they loved Rian Johnson's turd so much. They didn't like this movie because it tried to undo a lot of what Rian Johnson did. Now, of course, we all didn't like it because it made more of a mess of things than even Rian Johnson's movie
Although
did.
I will say that many did like it undoing Rian Johnson in such disrespectful ways.
There was
just
that part of it, yeah.
Because that's the cool thing that, as Tom pointed out, that between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, that's like a live-action Twitter fight between Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams.
And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But I think, like I said, for this reason, if we go back and we look at this and you see the kind of exact same almost disparity between the critics and the audience scores the same thing here as it was. So it goes to suggest that, look, you can. I watched audience reviews pouring in on this thing at 9:01 p.m. last night, Central Time. You might have just had the screenings on the East Coast get out by that point.
Yes.
And this thing had been flooded with, I think, 500 reviews within the first few minutes. You can astroturf the audience scores just the same as you can astroturf anything. I'm not saying it absolutely was done here. I'm not saying anything funny's going on, but if you have friends that go out there, or hey, look, we know this group of people is going to see something. We want to make sure, just like an Amazon book review or product review, you get your friends to go out there, people that bought tickets. So they have on here, of course, the verified reviews, meaning they know these people had tickets to it. I'm not saying that these are fake people or just bought it or anything like that. I'm just saying that you can stack the deck if you really want to on these things. So my point is, no, the audience score isn't sacrosanct, and the the critic score is not always wrong. It's wrong more often than not, I would say, especially in recent years. But the audience score is not immune to being padded, fortified, manipulated. So yeah, that's it. We'll see what happens. We'll know by Sunday. This thing had a $9.5 million previews, I think, last night. So it's bodes fairly well. It's not as high as some of the others. I think it's the third or fourth highest pandemic era Thursday night. Look, it's a Marvel movie. It's still got that brand, and a $75 million opening weekend is still nothing to balk at. But at the end of the day, this movie still needs $550 bare minimum to cross that profit threshold. I mean, you're talking about a $200 million budget, another $100 million easily in global P&A. That's marketing, because that's what all these Marvel movies have been getting the last several years. It's been at least that. Let's put it that way. And you're talking about it's only a 45-day theatrical window, and exhibitioners do not like to share. So if you're going to go rent their very valuable real estate to exhibit your film that you desperately need so you can make money to pay the bills that this film cost, $300 million in this case, they don't like it when you're going to day and date stream it like Warner Media does. So you don't get nearly as good of terms as a Sony Pictures, who doesn't have any strings attached. Disney's getting better terms than Warner, I can promise you that, because they are actually giving it to theaters now exclusively, which is why Bob Chapek made the change after Black Widow. Okay, they didn't like. I don't think he liked the terms that they were getting on that, and he said, "Okay, we can do better." But he only did it for 45 days. So if you look at it from that perspective, you've probably got Sony getting the best deals right now. You've got Disney in the middle And you've got Warner Brothers probably getting the worst deals at AMC and Cinemark right now in terms of rentals.
Yeah, and also in terms of the box office, Maestro Chi has a demand for Monday. Recount.
Yeah, the bottom line is just don't pay attention to the score. The financial metrics is what's important. That is ultimately what matters. All this stuff is for naught. You know, it's great to say, oh, the audience loved it, but it's you know, we're talking about an MCU film here. We're not talking about we're not talking about Nomadland, right? We're not talking about, you know, and no disrespect to Chloe Zhao. Don't misunderstand me. That's a very different movie, obviously.
Yeah.
This movie has to make money. I mean, these movies are built to be blockbusters. When you go make an indie film like Nomadland, you're not making it to become rich. You're making it to be artful and tell a story and win Oscars. That's a very different design than a movie like this. You know, this is designed to be a blockbuster. And if it doesn't meet those metrics, then it's a fail. And that's where all this stuff between Feige and Chapek and everything Cameron was talking about, and we've been talking about here, that Doomcock's talking about, that's where all of this is playing in, because a guy like Chapek is looking at this going, how is it that Sony Pictures over here is making a movie like Venom for $105 million? Venom 2. It was about 105, 110, I think, tops $1 million production budget. We're making Shang-Chi and the Eternals, and these things are costing us $200 million a piece. Yeah, we're getting some film tax credits for Shang-Chi or whatever, but we're, you know, $200 million movies. Black Widow, $200 million movie. Cruella, $200 million production budget. Chapek's got to be looking on these things. How is it everybody else is making these other movies similar blockbuster scale as what we're trying to do, and we're spending so much more than they are?
And Venom looked really good. I saw that film and I liked it. Let There Be Carnage. I thought they did a good job. It looks very good, and they got their money's worth. They did a good job.
I can't wait to see it when it's released in my part of the world.
Yeah. Godzilla versus Kong, $150 million production budget. How? And they're doing these movies, and Disney is supposedly spending this much more. And they're struggling at the box office more than these other movies.
Overpaying your buddies, fortifying certain numbers with a certain marketing budget. I'm sorry.
It's got to be something.
I'm sorry. I'm just you know, just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah. That to me, that like 200 million on Cruella, that to me sounds like okay, here's somewhere where we can try to explain that 75 million that we were looking for a place to place. Here we got it.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand a reported $400 million production budget on Endgame. Look at what you had to do in that movie. Look at the people you had to have. And that didn't even include the participation deals. That was another $130, $150 million that they had to pay out after the movie, after the box office, to all the cast and to the directors and to the Russo brothers and all this. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. got the biggest chunk of that. He got I think he got 50 million of that, 150. And then but I mean, so that kind of stuff. But I mean, that movie made almost $3 billion at the box office. Disney still walked out of there, I think, according to Deadline's financial calculator at the end of last year, Disney walked away with just shy of $900 million in profit on that movie. But it took a $2.8 billion box office to get that $900 million in profit, just to give everybody kind of an idea, you know, in terms of the scale you're talking about that you have to get to make that kind of money.
I don't see how they're going to get to bro. If you're telling me it's 500 million, which makes sense, that is in 45 days. That is a mass 550. That's a massive mountain to climb.
Well, they're 300 million all in, roughly. We know it's a $200 million production budget, and again, profit and I mean, or print and advertising, marketing are much more difficult figures to come by. Occasionally, you know, you'll have places like Deadline that will report it. That we'll find out. But I mean, every one of these Marvel movies, we know the last Marvel movie that I heard of that they spent less than $100 million on global marketing was Guardians 2. That was 2016, 2017. That was 80 million, right? But those were characters, that was an extremely popular group of characters that everybody already knew who they were. So generally speaking, when you're introducing brand new things like Shang-Chi, like the Eternals, nobody knows, you have to spend more to market more. You have to up your quantity. So I look, $100 million on this is easy. So you got 300 million all in. You figure average 50% of the box office. That's 550 to 600 million. That you're in that range before you can comfortably say, okay, they're in profit territory.
Yeah.
All right. Should we do some more
Pretty
super
much.
chats? Or
Yeah, we have some more super chats to go through. So let us do that. I'm just going to make a note of the time code here so that we can put that in the description here afterwards.
Great job, Valiant. Great job.
Yes, excellent. Thanks for that notice. I hadn't noticed that. So yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks for pointing that out. And everyone, go check out Valiant Renegade's channel, linked to in the description, for even more details on this. Meanwhile, as I said, we leave no super chat behind. And where we left off was Svaggelhaus Comics and Games, who said for $5. Problem with the MCU is every property this year has made their characters morally gray, which is an issue if you're doing heroic storytelling, in his opinion. And yeah, absolutely. Then we have Nintendo Power, who said for $5, I live in the upstate. If you pass by, visit Cowpens if you're a history buff, and be sure to eat some shrimp and grits. Just avoid Myrtle Beach. Joker Voice said for $5, comic book sales have been suffering with the woke politics ever since they have started. That's why manga is killing it. Yes, indeed. Michael Millard said for 14 South African rounds, first step to good sci-fi. Fire Alex Kurtzman and JJ. Yeah, I can't argue with that. That's, if you want to do something good in sci-fi, make sure to lock those two into a closet first. Melvin Belliard says for $10, good afternoon, lady and gentlemen. So wait, you're telling me that Andre's voice is natural and not programmed. What's next? You're going to tell me that Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny aren't real? Oh, yeah. There you go. And Callum Lyle says, I want more Monsterverse movies. I'm sure many people want that. I'm sure some will be forthcoming, but I don't know that any more have been announced. But I think that's a matter of time. Snell World says for $5, I have my tickets for Ghostbusters Afterlife already, and I can't wait to see it. Agreed completely. Lee Kindler says for $4.99, good writers will use story and character to get their message across. Hacks put messaging first and treat story as an afterthought. Cumulus One says for $5, how much do you want to bet the audience score for Eternals stays at 86%, just like the Rise of Skywalker? Yeah, this is exactly what Valiant just pointed out. So yeah, I'm not going to take that bet because I think it's a very fair shot that's going to stay right there.
No, and I thought, to be fair, that it would probably adjust downward by like Monday, Tuesday next week. But then after I saw that this morning, after somebody showed me, I was like, never mind. I think it's going to stay probably right there.
Yeah. And Mr. Tickletrunk says for $5 Canadian, myth and sci-fi is important for society. It's about introspection, humanity, and morality. Dune's a good start to get back on track. Do better, Hollywood. Indeed, indeed. Callum Lyle said for another $5 Australian, ScarJo is singing with Bono in that Sing 2 movie. I had absolutely no idea, and I have no desire to check it out. But that's me, and opinions may vary. Kaiju King Gabriel says for $10, hey all and hi chat. Adding my 2 cents to the whole Riri Williams nonsense. I found it baffling that they didn't go with the boy from Iron Man 3 and make him Iron Lad, or even use his daughter. Odd. And yeah, I would agree, were it not for the fact that the daughter is like maybe the wrong color, since she's white. But yeah. Ironcaster says for $5, Guardians had highly marketable characters in Rocket and Groot. Eternals is compatible with characters nobody heard of, but where is the appeal? But you found it appealing, apart from the trailers. Isn't that about right?
Absolutely. It's a great film to watch. It's visually pleasing. There's absolutely, if you went in cold and you didn't know anything about it, it's a fun film to watch for sure. So I would recommend it. If you're looking for a specific storyline or think it's going to follow, what we know, that's where there's a possibility you might be disappointed in that. But, I liked it. So.
Yeah. And Thomas Plummer said for $10, honestly, I just miss the smaller superhero stories, both in movies and comics, like Phase 1 Iron Man or Spider-Man Homecoming. When the stakes are small and personal, we get to know the characters. And personally, I agree completely. That's where I felt that Phase 4 should have gone, instead of mucking with the fabric of reality to try to top the Infinity Stones and Thanos. That's my thoughts. What do you guys think? Valiant?
They had no right to mess with the Infinity Stones. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. I know you went to Valiant, and I apologize for jumping.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. If you feel so passionately for it, then go for it.
I'm just so upset about them, because, especially since there's so many of us out there who, have gauntlets with the Infinity Stones on them, and there's so much connected to the lore with these Infinity Stones. And I understand that there may be multi-universes and they might not have power there, but it still hurts. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I missed the first part of the question. That was probably in reference to the Loki thing.
Yeah. No, the question was basically the gist of the question is this: why do they just have to go bigger and better? Couldn't they instead just have gone smaller street scale, where we get to know the characters, where not everything is a cosmic threat?
Well, yeah, I mean, I get wanting to go bigger because that's the way it works in these movies. It's like, okay, we brought you to the brink of universal destruction. Crap, now what do we do? I did not like the way that it would drove me crazy, just like over there said, is to what they did to the Infinity Stones in Loki was just appalling. I didn't like it. I thought it was terrible. It was just, I felt like it was just kind of stupid and lazy. Just, oh yeah, they're paperweights. Yeah, we don't, no, never mind. It's like we just had the entire Infinity War saga. They bring you through all that, and then the first thing that they give you next is, it's bullshit. This is all bullshit. This is bigger. That was bullshit. I didn't like it, and that instantly turned me off. I mean, what little interest I had in Phase 4 in that moment.
And to be clear, that was the writer of Loki, who's also the writer for Doctor Strange, The Multiverse Madness. He was the one who said, you know what, all that stuff that came before, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically all that stuff with Thanos. That was just bullshit compared to.
Was that Michael Waldron?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, any thoughts on that before we move on?
I was so looking for, I'll say it in about 1 minute or less. I was so looking forward to the Loki show. I was in and out, not even 2.5 episodes in. I couldn't watch it any longer. Everything these our two great panelists have said is on point. Agree completely. And what really bothers me is that there was a time where humility and creativity mattered when you were a writer or a producer or a showrunner, and you would respect the lore versus come in and say, oh, it's my turn. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna care about this. I'm gonna care about that, and I'm gonna do my own thing. And I'm just gonna this is a chalkboard. I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of all the chalk. And then here's a new story. And I'm just gonna piss on everything that once had value and meaning to you.
They could have found a better way to do it if that's what they really wanted to. They could have been more respectful. They could have understood or at least tried to put themselves in the shoes of the fans that are seeing this going, what? They
don't understand what it is to be a true fan, because like RrrMmmmm was talking about, when you're a fan, you follow stuff, you follow the next iteration, you buy toys, you buy action figures, you get posters, you get drawings, you get collector cards, and then all of a sudden something comes along and you're like, well, wait a minute, what did you just do to
Yep. And what's amazing is the amount of, what did we all complain about with Loki, right? The show. It was the just monotonous exposition in that show. They walk down a hall and talk. They sit in a room and they talk. They walk through a library and they talk. They sit at a table and they talk. They look at each other and talk. They walk. Talk. It was just talk. It was exposition, right? What is everybody complaining about with the Eternals? The amount of exposition and talking and all this, and it's just boring. There's a lot of dead space in there. And newsflash, by the way, Nerdrotic is tweeting from live inside the theater right now, and he reports, and I quote, "Okay, this is bad. Hashtag Eternals."
Yeah.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. He just
Renegade
tweeted it.
Jr.?
No. Gary, Nerdrotic.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. No, he just tweeted it.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. But yeah, again, people will have the difference of opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But I have no issue. Like, personally, I made up my mind. This ain't good within 2 seconds. And I mean literally 2 seconds in. When I saw like the wall of text, I was like, this was done wrong. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We have a few more super chats to go through, so let's do that. We left off at Steven Simmons, who for $10 had a question for Kamran. Have you heard anything about the Ice and Horn TV show that was in development? I'm a big Warhammer 40k fan, and it frightens me to think of what wokeists would do with it. I'm going to make a note of that question and forward it to him. Maybe he'll answer it on Toxic Femininity on Monday, or if not, I'll try to make it so that he'll answer it here. But I don't think that he would have any more knowledge about that than anyone else here. I have no information about it. I haven't heard a single thing about it, and maybe he does, but I don't think so. I don't think there's any news about it, and about wokeists and who would do what. That depends on who has the rights, and I don't even know that. So can't answer that in this moment. Sorry about that. Freaking Jedi said for $4.99. Can we get ScarJo to play Darth Talon? She would be great as a Sith Lord. And yeah, with her still working with Disney, it's not off the table. Peter Smigelski said for $10. Do you think Feige is facing his own Dagobah cave experience, where he faces the thing he takes only to try to beat it, and once defeated, he finds that he himself is his own greatest enemy? I think there's another way to put that, and that was in The Dark Knight. Like, either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. That's like a variation of the same thing, right? And yeah, I do believe that Feige may be there. Bob A says for £5, did they add reshoots to the Eternals, and what could they have been? Is the MCU Phase 4 realigning the next Endgame on the fly? Marvel always has like scheduled reshoots. I do not know that there were any out of the ordinary reshoots. There might have been, but if so, I'm not aware of it. It would have had the same standard reshoots that every Marvel movie has like scheduled, so I wouldn't worry about that. About Phase 4 realigning itself, that's going to depend on the reception of the next few movies here. So I think it's too early to tell on that one, but we shall keep you up to date as we learn more. Then we had Gran Wasu 42 saying for €5, isn't a former Disney marketing guy now at Rotten Tomatoes as manager? All very suspicious. Don't forget the Marvel stands as well. And yeah, there's absolutely like some dodgy connections between various companies and everything. So always treat numbers coming from there with a little bit of grain of salt and some healthy skepticism. And then Valiant. Can you say the name one more time?
Rod Thunderheart.
And he says for $5 Canadian, hail Midnight Edge in the morning. Since for since for not spoiling, how can you spoil a crappy movie? I've heard strong rumors that's Blade's voice at the end of Eternals. What the hell? That's news to me. I didn't notice any Blade's voice.
Hadn't heard that one.
Did you notice any Blade's voice at the end of Eternals? Because I didn't.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't notice any Blade's voice at the end. In fact, I wasn't quite sure what was going on at the end credit. All I remember seeing this man open a box, and it had a sword in it. And
yeah, but that has nothing to do with it. I mean, that's
not what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, that's him becoming the Black Knight. Apparently, somewhere there was like some voice that is supposed to have belonged to Blade. That's the first thing I ever hear of it.
I've never heard. I'm not familiar with it.
I mean, like, just like the character. Or are we talking like Wesley Snipes' voice is what you heard? That's what I
would imagine. I would imagine like the recast Mahershala Ali Blade.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, the new guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we would have remembered it, Andre.
Yeah, I certainly noticed no such thing. And then we are soon getting caught up here. Then we have Troy Pacelli, who says for $5, trashing the Infinity Stones is like all the other franchises kissing off the fans. Goodbye, thanks for the cash. We don't need or want you anymore. Yeah, it's kind of exactly what it is. And Chaosonic 1 also says for $2, don't help writer of Loki also wrote Rick and Morty. Yeah, that's brilliant. And then we are caught up with what I can get up on screen. Mecha J, he has a question for everyone. In your guys' opinion, who would you have wanted to direct the Eternals movie? And I want to begin with you, because I know that you liked the movie, and that's completely fine, even though I didn't. But assume that you could choose anyone else to direct it, presumably someone that wouldn't have Icarus have violent confrontations with his girlfriend. Who would you alternatively have chosen to direct the Eternals?
Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, why not Kevin Feige?
Kevin Feige?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well,
I think he would have done a great job.
Before.
I mean, why doesn't he try something to kind of step out of the box and do something new with this? I don't think he would have done what Chloe Zhao would have done. So,
well, that's absolutely an interesting perspective. How about you, Valiant? Who would you have chosen to know? Granted, you haven't seen the movie.
I haven't.
But you have seen the trailers.
Yeah.
You heard the spoilers. If you could choose a different director, someone who would make you want to see this movie, who would it be?
Well, I don't know much about Chloe Zhao. Like, I mean, apart from, cursory knowledge, I would say, look, when it comes to any kind of big action movie like this, comic book movie, I don't know if I'd have one person. I think this more comes down to the writing than the directing, maybe, or at least 50-50. But look, people like Jon Favreau that obviously know how to do these kind of superhero movies, and they give fans something they really like. They know how to build a character that fans really like. I've done it multiple times. I would have loved to have seen somebody like a Favreau do this.
That is a good choice. That's a very good choice.
And Mike, how about you? If you could choose another director, someone who would make you want to see the Eternals, who would you choose?
Okay, so I'm like the executive producer. I've got the money and I got the connections, and I'm going to make this thing happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. You're going to make it happen. Who do you hire?
All right.
You're Kevin Feige. How do you make this happen?
Wait, I'm Kevin Feige? That's different. If I'm Kevin Feige, then I would pick a dumpster fire to direct this, because that's what it's going to be. So I might as well start with that. But let's say Kevin Feige doesn't exist. I'm in an alternative Midnight's Edge universe as a Midnighter.
You're the Kevin Feige replacement. Kevin Feige is fired.
I'm going to go with Favreau or Kamran Pasha. Those are my two picks. I want to fix the writing and the execution at the same time, and that's the team I'm going with. Kamran Pasha and Favreau. That's who I'm going with.
And as for me, I don't know a name, but I will. What's interesting to me is the kind of sensibilities that you would need. You would need someone who, as a director, can master really weird, quirky, upbeat character relations. That's one thing. Because like these are 7,000-year-old characters that are isolated from the rest of humanity, and they know each other and they have like weird relations between them. So you need someone who can master that. That's kind of like the core. And on top of that, this is a Jack Kirby adaptation, and not something that Jack Kirby co-created. Like, for instance, you don't have to use Jack Kirby's visuals when doing the Fantastic Four or the Incredible Hulk, because he only co-created those. But the New Gods and the Eternals are 100% Jack Kirby, which means that, in my opinion, you don't do them unless you are going to bring his style to life, like Taika Waititi did in Thor Ragnarok. So you need those visuals. So you need someone who can do those visuals and who can do quirky relations. So you are looking for not necessarily Taika Waititi, but someone like Taika Waititi, or someone like a James Gunn, someone like that, someone who can do that kind of weird stuff, someone that does like smaller weird things, someone maybe, yeah, like you go for like someone who's directed like smaller, weirder movies, like Tommy Wirkola, for instance, is someone. He's a Norwegian, so I have like a slight bias there. But he did like Dead Snow, and he also has like this new movie on Netflix with Noomi Rapace, which is pretty awesome, about a married couple who are going on a retreat to rekindle their relationship, and in reality, they're both trying to kill each other. So yeah, you need someone who can do quirkiness like that. That's who you go with for a movie like this. And then we have, because we're nearing the end, but we're not quite there yet. Then we have Master Clockwork saying, "This just in, Chris Pratt to voice Darth Vader. Also, is not doing Garfield anymore. Oh, that's a shame for the kitty." And then we have
Andre. I looked at an article that said it was Chloe Zhao who said that the voice at the end of the movie is Mahershala Ali.
Okay. So I don't even know which voice that was, but yeah. And Tina Bojan says that I heard the voice was Thanos' brother. Yeah, no, that's not just the voice. He appears on screen. That's like this teenage heartthrob. I forget his name now.
Harry Styles.
Yeah, that's the one. I have no idea who the hell he is. Never seen him before. You're
not missing anything.
Yeah, no, he needs to get the hell off my lawn. But he's playing Eros, so yeah.
I thought he was cute.
Cranky for that.
He's young, but he's cute. I enjoyed him. So
yeah, but you're the target audience, so that's fine.
Yeah,
as I say, that's who they're going for. They're trying to, and I mean, not just you. I mean, they're trying. That is an audience there. I have 2 teenage daughters, y'all, and I mean, an older one, she's like, I can't stand him. My younger one, my 14-year-old, she's like, and it's
she's sold.
That's what they're going after. They're going after that teenage girl audience. Bringing
Eros, a standalone movie. Here we come.
Oh God, help us.
So yeah, no, I didn't even notice there was like the voice of Blade. But then again, I was like so frustrated, tearing my my ears out and everything like that when that was said. So yeah. Then let's see. I think that we may be fully caught up. Just going to do a quick double check here, but I think we may be. Nope, we are not fully caught up, because we just got another one that I got in the repository, even though I can't bring it up. Yeah. Master Clockwork says, I ask you, would Eternals be better or worse as a Christopher Nolan film? That's an interesting question. Do you think it would have been better or worse as a Christopher Nolan film?
It would have been better.
I agree. It would have been better. It would have been pretentious as hell, but it would have been better.
It probably at least would have had some kind of storyline or plot, even though the audio probably still would have sucked. But
well, I wouldn't have noticed living in subtitle land. But yeah. And DS Ford wonders if there's a reason that I didn't read his super chat. I have to go back and find your super chat, but typically the reason for us not reading a super chat is us momentarily missing it. But I'm going to go right back.
While Andre's doing that, I
can't
just
find one. DS Ford here, looking for DS Ford in the repository. Here we go. No, we did read it. We did read it, DS Ford, but I'll read it one more time. Oh, we did read it already. DS Ford sent us $20. And he said, for the second time today, we are going through it. He says, "Hail, Andre, Kamran, Mike, Renegade, and the lovely RrrrMmmmm. This super chat is my way of saying F you to the Eternals movie. I encourage others to support this channel rather than to give these people in Hollywood.
Actually, you read it almost exactly 1 hour ago, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember that one. Yeah.
So yeah, and we approve the message, and we're very happy to read it for a second time. Yeah, we did that. Get that. If someone else feels that we have missed a super chat, now is the time to let me know. I don't think I missed anyone, but can never be too certain. And Darius Münchhausen sent us a super sticker, so thank you so much for that. Anyone else? Then
I think you're good, boss.
Yeah, I think we are good as well. So yeah, I hope that the DS Ford was here to listen to this. And then Brian Ford has a question. He wonders, how come Andrew Garfield keeps saying he's not in Spider-Man No Way Home? Well, to keep the surprise.
Because he has to.
Yeah, exactly. He's under contract because trying to keep it a surprise. That's why. That is the reason.
They take your money away if you violate those NDAs.
Right.
And Olaf von us thinks that I missed more from DS4. Okay, I'm going to see if there's some other ones from DS4. Then this is the only one that I know that I have here. I'm just going to go and check.
I think there were two. Hey, brother, DS4, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. If you missed it, just type it. Just whatever.
Yeah, of course. I'm just checking here to see if there were some others.
Yeah, he said he sent in the chat.
By the way, thanks, chat stream. Try to hit the like button. It really helps out Andre.
It really does. It helps us all.
It's if you didn't like today's show and you get it downvoted, let us know why. Would be great.
Yeah. So feel free.
And without further ado, I want to make sure. I want to thank Etta and Emma.
There's no other super chats from DS Ford. Just the one that we have gone through.
Okay.
Could it have been a member chat that disappeared?
No, I've got all the member chats. We only had.
Okay.
Did you get the member chat from Young Yoda that I sent you about 20 minutes ago?
Yeah, I think I did 20 minutes ago. I have to recheck that.
In the private chat.
Oh yeah, it's on there.
The young Yoda said, "Hello, everyone. Despite the constant mistakes, I refuse to watch propaganda. Hi, Kamran and Valiant Renegade." So yes, thanks for that. And I don't see any other super chats from DS Ford. That was the one that we got, and we have read it.
He said that was it. I probably had just missed it at the time.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, good. We're good then. But anyway, thanks for letting us know. I mean, we'd much rather do it twice than miss it, because we never leave a super chat behind.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, then, we are fully caught up. So I would like to say thank you to everyone who has been watching, making us part of your Friday and your morning routine. We really appreciate that. And thank you so much to our amazing panel, to Kamran, who had to leave earlier, to Mike, who helped me out here behind the scenes, despite I know you having other things to do as well, and our other special guests of today, always a pleasure to have you on stream, and of course Valiant Renegade, someone you absolutely should be watching out for. Great upcoming YouTuber. Check out his analysis. good man from finance like myself, and who brings that numbers A game to everything. So yeah, do check that out. And with that, now is when I really wish that Tom was here.
I can take care of it for you.
I have to look for them.
I can take care of it for you.
Okay, have you find it, because I can do it myself as well.
Okay.
I just have to find them. I have to find those pesky little bears who like to stand out in the rain and
It's
don't care
the
about
8th or 9th one from the top.
Koala time.
Yeah, as soon as I find them.
We'll just start singing it for everybody. If you can't find it.
All right.
Yeah, well, Mike, if you find it, then to push that button.
Okay, let me go back. I got out of it. So here goes. Ready? Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming
Bye.
in. We love you.
Take care.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given, koala